Part 298. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2984. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. But do you want to take the road to heaven? I dare to ask Senior, how to walk on this road to heaven. The phantom of Taishang's brainwave power in front of Jia Yan makes you panic all day long, but if you really want to observe it, you will find that he does not exist at all. If you look carefully, you will be horrified to find that his figure is all over the world. Like infinitely huge. This is already the feeling of a god. When Jia Yan asked, he suddenly let go of his closed visual senses. I saw the entire palace, as if being pulled by an invisible giant hand, automatically leaving the 10-dimensional subspace. This speed is about 10 times faster than when Edisha made the palace emerge from the subspace bit by bit. Did not even have the slightest structural impact on the palace itself, it was simply the work of ghosts and gods. So strong. Too strong. Even so, the Supreme Being still did not show up, as if he was just pulling the palace to fly out of the subspace through remote control. Boom. Not long after, in the sight of countless beings in the surrounding world, such an unimaginably huge palace suddenly flew out of the subspace, causing a huge commotion. However, the noise did not last long. After all, they are also the innermost beings in the central star field of the Milky Way. Even if they are only heaven-level weaklings, they are well-informed people who can hold their chests high and be proud. Did he turn out to be a strong person who participated in the Tongtian Road? So strong. In the past, those who were dragged here were usually around a territory lord. This one is not just a territory lord. Could it be that he is a senior territory lord? You must have underestimated the other party. According to my perceived strength, it seems that he is still above the senior domain master. I am afraid he is a giant in some star region of the galaxy. Real or fake? Above senior domain lords? Isn't that the lower level of domain lords? Don't make such a fuss. What about the lower level of the territory lord? Such a powerful person is not just at the mercy of others in his hands. But if he walks through the road to heaven later, we will have to treat him with caution. After all, it is far away. It's not something we can mess with. Jia Yan could actually hear the chats of the Xin Kong level and the Venerable level not far away. But he had no intention of responding. At this juncture, instead of worrying about others criticizing you, it is better to pay more attention to the terrifying existence who is preparing to guide you to participate in the road to heaven. Taishang's strength is too unpredictable, which is a bad sign for Jia Yan. He doesn't believe that with his current strength, he won't be able to resist at all, but if he really takes action or causes friction, he will become quite disadvantaged. Even if he enters the subspace, all the palaces within 10 degrees will be dragged out. I'm afraid he only by entering the 11th level of space can it be possible to escape the Taishang's pursuit. As for the 11th level space, Jia Yan has only tried it on the edge so far, and even he doesn't know whether his current physical body can withstand it. He didn't want to take this method unless it was absolutely necessary. I dare to ask Senior, how should we go on the so-called Tongtian Road? Suddenly, after being guided by the illusory majestic figure for a long time, Jia Yan stopped moving forward. Because he discovered that the figure was flying towards the pulsar with him. If he is asked to compete with the pulsar, then I'm sorry, but Jia Yan is grateful. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Instead of rushing to the pulsar to seek death, he would rather have a conflict with the pulsar. Maybe there would still be a chance of survival. Of course, intellectually speaking, the Supreme Being has no reason to do anything to himself. The phantom in front of him stopped and motioned for Jia Yan to follow him slowly. The phantom walked forward, and the whole expression was a bit emotional. We are old, and the Milky Way cannot reach its peak in a day. This road to the sky is what we have worked hard to build and cultivate for future generations. To nurture future generations. Jia Yan was startled, and then he understood something. The meaning of Taishang's words is profound, and it is terrifying to think about it carefully. They are old. Who is old? Are these the peak powerhouses from the lower ranks of the galaxy? If this spreads out, it will probably be earth-shattering news. Of course, Jia Yan then thought about it. He already said that he had no close relationship with him. This rumor had probably spread to the entire galaxy long ago, and he didn't even have to wait for him to go. Help spread the word. He had never heard of it before, firstly because he had too few friends, and also because he was too young and had never experienced anything, so he rushed to the lower level of the territory lord. He was probably the one with the least knowledge among the lower level of the territory lord. This feeling is a bit like what Jia Yan was like before he was promoted to the territory lord level. At that time, he had just arrived at Beuxing. He was a country bumpkin and had to cram in a lot of knowledge to become in line with his level. But who would have expected that just a short time later, he would be promoted again, reaching the lower level of territory lord. At this level, he would once again become an ignorant country bumpkin. At least compared to many of his peers, he really had no knowledge. Don't worry, young people, we won't harm you, go ahead. The Supreme Master waved his illusory arm, and Jia Yan realized that he might have underestimated this top powerhouse, because he felt as if his body was out of control, and he staggered into the gamma-ray area of the pulsar. Not good. When he recovered from his confusion, his expression changed and he was about to enter the subspace. But at this moment, he felt that the gamma rays were different from what he had imagined, and the danger was not that high. Could it be? Jia Yan's expression was solemn, and he bore the erosion of this gamma ray with peace of mind. The elusive figure silently looked at the towering giant mosquito in the gamma rays, then sighed softly, and the figure dissipated in place like a bubble in an instant. Gu, Guji, Gu, Guji. Bathed in the radiation power of gamma rays, Jia Yan felt wonderful. It's so strange. This is not a naturally occurring gamma ray at all, but a man-made thing. Jia Yan slowly realized the energy of gamma ray bursts, knowing that this force was hundreds or even tens of thousands of times weaker than he imagined, so he could bathe in the rays with peace of mind. What's even more amazing is that this gamma ray burst should be moving rapidly at any time and anywhere, but Jia Yan was trapped and moved inside the ray burst without any risk of falling out. What's even more astonishing is that the speed of this gamma ray burst can be said to be the same as the speed of light. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Jia Yan and all the powerful people, including Taishang, it is very likely that none of them can approach the speed of light at normal speeds. Even if they are traveling at an unknown speed many times the speed of light, in general, most of them are like Jia Yan. Yan achieved this in disguise using subspace, gravitational wave space, curvature navigation, etc. It can be said with certainty that there is no strong person who has truly experienced the speed of light. We all know that under the verification of the theory of relativity, the closer an object is to the speed of light, the more astonishing the various pressure indexes it has to withstand. And the universe can provide unlimited force to push objects close to the speed of light. I am afraid there are all major stars, among which pulsars, which release power to the outside world all the time, are the most common and economical. It's just that this so-called commonness and economy is by no means something that ordinary people can do. At least in Jia Yan's impression, there is almost no civilization that can normally borrow the power of pulsars, at least at close range. I didn't expect Taishang to have such an ability. What's even more terrifying is that he borrowed the power of a pulsar to push a huge powerhouse like Jia Yan into a gamma-ray burst and felt the speed approaching the speed of light. Of course, it is said to be close to the speed of light, but it may actually be far away, but a flying speed of more than 200,000 kilometers per second is definitely possible. Jia Yan was just a little dizzy under the endless power around him, and the brilliance of the energy gradually became dreamy. In the end, he felt that he was moving so fast, and his eyes were full of colorful lines. Lines. The way the Supreme Master borrows the power of the powerful people in the central star field of the Milky Way seems to be using lines. Jia Yan suddenly thought of this, and then he was extremely curious and deliberately strengthened his willpower to observe. These lines actually don't have much connection with the lines I've seen before, trying to seize the energy source of my disciples. It's just vaguely familiar, probably because some of the components in the lines belong to the Supreme Being. This is pure speed particles. Suddenly something flashed in Jia Yan's eyes, and he remembered a rumor he had always heard. In space battles, there is a right to speed. Whether it is a battle between strong men or a battle between military groups, whoever speeds up first will have a natural advantage over the enemy who speeds up later. Even if the speed power advantage is used well, the generation difference will be several generations. The warships within can defeat warships that are much more advanced than itself, because before the opponent's speed increases, they are no different from the lagging warships. But the speed particles that Jia Yan knew were not just ordinary speeds. This is a new sense of perception that sees almost all objects within the field of vision as particle-like things. In fact, the powerful people flying in the starry sky have more or less experienced such things as speed particles. Since Jia Yan mastered the talent of subspace, he often moved and fought within the subspace, which led him to the domain. In the main backstage, I have never experienced anything like speed particles. If I want to reach the particle state, my current speed is staggeringly fast. Jia Yan had not yet expressed more of his sensory views, but he saw that these colorful existences turned into particles and lines, after stabilizing to a certain speed, turned into a long road. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Yes, it really looks like a road, and it extends straight into the depths of the gamma-ray burst. Is this the road to heaven? What is the principle behind this? Jia Yan was really shocked. He was shocked when the Supreme Leader sent him into a gamma-ray burst before. Now, after increasing his speed, he used the gamma-ray burst to create something similar to a road. The thing was so ingenious and fantastic that Jia Yan found it unbelievable. Is this the thinking ability of top beings? It's really unconstrained, and if you dare to think about it, you can actually do it. If you don't get that certified person, even if you rush into a gamma-ray burst, even if this person has the strength to ignore gamma rays, I'm afraid he won't be able to find this road to heaven, because the Supreme Being won't allow it. It's impossible to form such a big deal, but I suddenly became interested. Jia Yan still doesn't know what the secrets of the so-called Tongtian Road are, but after witnessing such a miracle with his own eyes, even though he attaches great importance to his own safety, he can't help but feel the urge to go and find out. So he moved forward and walked up the stairs, which was colorful and seemed to be made of particles. With each step, there was a shadow of a giant mosquito, but with every step forward, there would be a new shadow. Even when he reached the end, he couldn't figure out which shadow was his real self. He only felt that every shadow was his own, but each path is different from itself. Each path has its own advantages and disadvantages, which are distinct. But all in all, the shadow that reaches the last line is the shadow that has the most profound effect on eliminating the bad and retaining the essence. It is also definitely the strongest and has the most potential advantage. At first, the shadow came to a place near the end of the colorful road. Going forward, the colors had disappeared. It was even possible that he would step into the interior of a pulsar that would never be recovered, causing his body to disappear and being blown away by a neutron star in an instant. The pressure crushed it into powder. So he shook his head with regret, stopped moving forward, and then turned back to looking at the giant mosquito figures behind him. His eyes were filled with sparkle. He has memorized the various flaws and advantages of these figures, especially the last few, and has almost reached the most optimized options based on his current strength. Even Jia Yan is a little surprised. As an evolved beast, he is indifferent to most life forms. In other words, he is the perfect among perfections, but under the reflection of the heavenly road, he still has so many physical defects. It's a pity that I can't continue walking, otherwise this road to heaven will reveal more shortcomings for me, so that I can clarify my mind and nature and find the true path for my subsequent cultivation. Jia Yan sighed a little, but this mood did not last long. The old voice I heard just now reached my ears. Come out, these figures, it doesn't mean much if you look at them once or multiple times. Yes. Jia Yan nodded sincerely, and then the leading figure stepped back. Every figure overlapped with this figure. Finally, all the figures merged into one place and turned into the original giant mosquito. Then, the colorful surroundings quickly receded and returned to a particle-like gamma-ray burst. Before Jia Yan had time to react, he was pushed out of the ray sweep range by the gamma-ray burst. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The giant mosquito drew an elegant arc in the air, and then he stabilized his figure without being embarrassed, looked at the shadow, and walked through the starry sky in a few steps as if teleporting, and came to the shadow of the Supreme Being. Thank you, Senior. This road to the sky is well deserved. It really feels like reaching the sky. With today's experience, I will reduce the number of 100 years of hard work. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2985. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The silent and illusory figure remained silent for a moment, then waved his arms and said, "Let's go, don't disturb my six senses." Well. Jia Yan was stunned again. He was planning to have a heated exchange of sympathy with the senior, but he didn't expect that he would just kick him out. It's right to think about it. Although I said I would save 100 years of hard work, who can say for sure about talent? At this level, I am afraid that in the eyes of the Supreme Being, no one's talent is much different. It is more likely that he has seen too many talented people on Tongtian Road. I don't know if any of them will eventually take that step. There must be only a few, otherwise it would not become so routine and routine. Then, Junior, please take your leave. Jia Yan focused all his strength on flying, quickly got into the subspace, and then entered the palace that had returned to the first level of the subspace. As Edisha turned on the engine with all her strength, the palace sank 10 degrees and flew away with lightning speed. Go. But at the location of the pulsar where people left the building, the phantom appeared again at some point, but without Jia Yan, no one could find his whereabouts. The shadow stared at the departing palace for a long time, then shook his head indifferently, and turned into a part of the starry sky, disappearing into thin air. In this way, I can be considered a strong person verified by Tongtian Road, right? Can I enter the black hole area? Inside the palace, Jia Yan did not choose to enter seclusion immediately. He only ordered Edisha to move towards the black hole area, and then entered the state of sorting out the harvest. In fact, after understanding the road to heaven just now, he found that it was a very high-end thing that helped the strong to improve. To eliminate the waste and retain the essence, you must know that although this thing does not immediately help a strong man like Jia Yan improve his strength, nor does it directly increase his talent level, it is definitely not much worse than directly improving his strength and talent. It directly helps you eliminate the bad and retain the good. In other words, the entire Tongtian Road is the benefit given by the Taizhang, or the powerful group behind the Taizhang, to the domain lord level powerhouses in the entire galaxy. Every domain lord will be invited to Tongtian Road, and the time it will exist here will definitely not be short. In other words, Tongtian Road has received many powerful people over the years. While Jia Yan was walking forward in the palace, his head suddenly clicked. If the Tongtian Road is the place where the Supreme Masters take action to assist the Domain Lord level in climbing to the next peak, then, it seems that there are not many such masters among the masters who have been lifted up in this way. In fact, the reason is very simple. If there were more powerful people like Tais Hang, they would not be so anxious to help other powerful people improve their strength. Strong people are inherently selfish. There may be strong people who want to pass on their mantles, but those are the kind of beings who have come to the end of their lives and have even seen through the meaning of life, thinking that living or dead does not matter. The Supreme Being is probably of this type. I am afraid that the threads he obtained from the powerful people in the central star field of the Milky Way are not simply for exploitation. However, despite the help of Tongtian Road, and possibly even the secret help of powerful people like Tais Hang, there are still not many powerful people like Tais Hang in the galaxy. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. If there were a lot of people like that, the young people would probably not agree to the older generation engaging in these tricks to increase their own threats. I dare not say that my talent is better than that of other lower-level domain lords. After all, having reached this point, it is no longer a matter of talent. Every lower-level domain lord has talent, luck, and even deeper levels. The birth is possible only if the causes and effects are gathered together, and yet they have not been able to reach the lower level of Territory Lord. How difficult is the road above the Territory Lord? Jia Yan was worried for a while. Master, here we come. When Aditha's voice woke him up, he was still thinking about the road to heaven. But the black hole passage in front of you is important. Jia Yan woke up and looked at the world ahead. There, a figure who was in constant panic had already swung up to the starry sky. His brainwave power even penetrated the shallow levels of the subspace and went straight to the 10-dimensional subspace. It seemed that he was preparing to make the palace make the same mistakes again and be driven away again. Friend, I have obtained the guidance of the Supreme Master on the road to heaven, and I hope it will be convenient for me. Jia Yan slowly released the power of his brainwaves. The person on the other side nodded calmly, not surprised. If he explicitly asked Jia Yan to go on this trip and Jia Yan still refused to go, then he would not be a fool, but would have to consider how he could cultivate to this level. So do you understand? The other party asked unexpectedly. Understood. Jia Yan was startled, all kinds of thoughts flashing through his mind, and he nodded heavily and said, I understand. I also understand the reason for your interception, but, after all, this matter is a grudge between you and me. Next time I go out of the black hole area, I will return that move to my friends. Jia Yan was so stubborn, but the person opposite didn't have the slightest idea of getting angry, and just nodded casually. The aura of the strong man in the entire starry sky retreated like a fly. It was not that the other party retreated in spite of the difficulties, but that he really had no intention of going against Jia Yan. There was no sadness or joy in Jia Yan's expression, and he just lightly told Edisha to move forward. The palace flew at the same speed as before, silently passing through this area. Just as they passed by, Jia Yan's eyes penetrated 10 times of space and shot to somewhere in this quiet space, where he found the person whose strength was equal to his. The guy who was vaguely more powerful looked at each other. It was as if a thunderbolt ignited and detonated in an instant. However, the two parties only looked at each other for a moment, and each chose to settle the matter. After Jia Yan passed through space, he entered a very peaceful giant gate. The gate was about 100,000 kilometers wide, enough to accommodate 7 or 8 Earths passing through at the same time. Even his palace flew out of the subspace and queued up at the entrance of the palace, attracting countless people to watch. Soon Jia Yan entered the gate again. He honestly asked his avatar to cooperate with Edisha to complete the procedures. Hey, there is such a big show again. Everyone, come on. If it is some kind of galaxy class, let's divide the things first, and then either kill them, or capture them and make them work for our power. The magnificent palace was followed by a small planet. The moment he entered the black hole area, Jia Yan didn't have time to enjoy the sudden increase in cosmic power. He already heard some familiar clichés ringing near the door. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Well, Jia Yang still remembers that after he entered the black hole in a unique way, he encountered forces robbing people around the black hole area. I didn't expect that there would be such people when I walked through the main entrance. It makes people miss it very much. You are so arrogant, how dare you make plans for my master's palace? Just when Jia Yan wanted to let the clone go to solve it, he heard a loud voice from the Edisha star, and a menacing figure rose from the surface of the planet and headed straight for the group of strong men. It turned out that Leda, who had been forgotten by Jia Yan for a long time, volunteered to work for Jia Yan. This kid is quite sensible. If I have to use my clone to do even such a thing, what use is there for him? It's not that Jia Yan has forgotten the other party, it's just that he was either rushing through the subspace or dealing with powerful people above the domain lord level before, so he didn't have the chance to use it at all. Who are you? Beginner, intermediate level of Zeng. Most of the interceptors over there were beginners in the galaxy. Facing Leda, an intermediate in the galaxy, their eyes became solemn. And why did Leda's strength increase from elementary to intermediate level? In fact, Leda and other strong men have improved a lot in creating the world, especially in terms of mental strength. As a being with good talent, Leda was stuck at the peak of the first level of the galaxy in the early years, but his mental power has not broken through in any case. No, that's why he was stuck in the first level for a long time. The last trip to create the world seemed to come naturally, allowing him to break through that shackles. On the way to the central star field of the Milky Way, Leda also made a complete preparation. With Jia Yan at his side and the massive resources on Edisha as a basis for breakthrough, Jia Yan even rewarded him with a pseudo-star core for breakthrough. After all the preparations, it is a natural breakthrough and success. In the black hole area, the treatment and status of elementary level galaxy and mid-level galaxy are completely different. When Jia Yan was at the middle level of galaxy, he showed off his power when he entered here. Leda's current situation was not much more serious than that then, so he immediately calmed down the scene. Your Excellency, you are talking about your family. Could it be that this palace and the planet are not your property? Some people were unwilling to give in and asked through gritted teeth. Leda looked at him and snorted unsatisfied, if you don't believe it, you can try to attack the palace and see if my master will cut you into pieces. Of course, before that, you have to survive my attack. Your counterattack. This guy spoke quite well. He not only threatened the opponent with Jia Yan, but also showed his loyalty. After all, no matter what, the combat effectiveness of the strong men in the black hole area is much higher than that of the outside world. Leda, who has spent some time here and almost became a slave, knows this best. With the strength of his newly broken through intermediate galaxy, he was confident that he would not be able to defeat even a first-level galaxy master, regardless of the powerful mid-level galaxy players present. But there is Master Jia Yan behind him. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. So he still dares to be crazy. This. The powerful people present looked thoughtfully at the person Leda provoked, as if they were laughing. Originally, most of these people who blocked the gate were some forces who came to the gate to capture the strong men. Many of them were even hostile forces. If they did not start fighting on the spot, it was just for the sake of the defenders. It was almost impossible for them to join forces. Sex. What are you guys doing blocking the door? Get out of the way. Suddenly, a roar came from inside a building next to the gate, and at the same time, a domain lord level momentum spread. Yes. Everyone immediately dispersed, like a rabble. On the other hand, Jia Yan, who was in the palace, smiled slightly. He knew that the territory lord level was driving people away. These guys had nothing to do with the territory lord level guards. Jia Yan was the first to not believe it, but the territory lord level was behind him. When I passed by, I saw the written strength level of region lord written on it. At this time, of course, I wanted to stop those fools from testing me. If they really caused any trouble, they might implicate him. However, this kind of thing is not offensive to Jia Yan. Leda soon returned to Edisha Star at Jia Yan's call with an upright and loyal look on her face. The palace and Edisha slowly set off, but Jia Yan's voice came to the gate. Your Excellency enforces the law impartially, I admire it. I don't dare. I have already sent a message to these bastards. If Senior comes here next time, there will no longer be such guys disturbing Senior's spiritual practice. Thank you very much. Jia Yan accepted the other party's affection. Then, the palace and Edissa Star, which were not far away from the gate, entered the subspace one after another in full view of everyone, and then gradually merged into the distortion, like giant swimming fish immersed in deep water, and disappeared. This, such a big palace and planet, enter the subspace. It's still the subspace in our black hole area. You know, the subspace here is by no means that stable. Look, the palace is heading directly in the direction of our power. With the violent temper of our power leader, can he let others pass through his own subspace? There will definitely be a fight. What? Our master of power didn't even take action when? It seems that he is still flattering and joking with this being. The bustling gate suddenly fell silent. You know, it's okay for the palace to penetrate into the subspace, but it is shocking enough to directly penetrate a force with a strong domain lord. Although that domain lord is not a senior domain lord, he is a combat type domain lord. Lord, even among the domain lords on the periphery of the Heidi region, his strength ranks high. But seeing such a rude palace, let the other party pass directly? No, the existence we wanted to intercept just now is a powerful person who has surpassed the domain lord level. There's news. Let me take a look. Well, the guard said, this is a superpower. Let's show our talents next time. Damn it, I received it too. We almost caused a disaster just now. You know, the guard master doesn't even give face to many senior domain masters. How powerful is the super? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Our superpower seems to be talking about the domain, the lower level of the domain lord? Goodoo. It's gone, let's go. I was frightened today. I have to go back and hold my newly married concubine to sleep. See you tomorrow. I'm leaving too. I'm going back to apply for a change of position. Whoever wants to be treated can be treated as such. If you are targeted by such a powerful person, hundreds of lives will not be enough to kill you. For a moment, countless figures fled in panic around the entire gate. The group of guys who were originally showing off their power quickly escaped completely. However, similar things actually happen quite often. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2986. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. After all, this is the center of the entire galaxy. Even the so-called superpowers, those who are the lower-level domain lords, have to enter through the gate honestly, and the control is even stricter than that of ordinary strong people. Deep in subspace, Jia Yan looked at the area he had just passed through. The domain lord level experts inside were still looking forward to it, smiling and sending Jia Yan off respectfully. Territory lord level to the lower territory lord level is like seeing a natural enemy. When Jia Yan approached without concealing his aura, he smelled the smell from a distance and greeted him with a bow and nod. The strong men in the central star field of the Milky Way are like this. They don't have any strong temperament, let alone the strong men in the black hole area. It is natural to often bump into super strong people, so the strong men guarding not far from the door are completely devoid of the integrity of a strong man. As early as the last time I came here, I looked down on the strong people here, but now I think about it, this is not a way of survival. Will they really have less strong heart? In fact, not. Jia Yan withdrew his gaze, and the territory lord level expression in the distance quickly relaxed, knowing that the superpower had left. The black hole area is back again, the four giant stars. Jia Yan gave up the confrontation with the leaders of these major forces. As long as they did not disturb his actions, he would not take the initiative to stir up trouble. The time he left the black hole area before, he acted in a high-profile manner. After all, he didn't know how many strong people were watching here at the time. He passed the gate in a showy manner. In the eyes of many super strong people, he must have been like a child playing house. Just a family act. Now that he has returned to his old place, his strength has reached that level. It's hard to make a big fuss like last time. He will be laughed at by his peers. Hey, there is also a junior domain lord over there, and he has been paying attention to me. Jia Yan was keenly aware that there were quite a few territory lords of the lower level in this area. He had not heard much news in the past because the territory lords of the lower level were probably working hard to break through the most difficult and gigantic level. These beings did not show any courtesy to Jia Yan, nor did they express any hostility. They just watched his palace fly by in silence. However, in a rather ethereal area, Jia Yan was far away in this area. After feeling the aura inside, he unexpectedly ordered Edisha to go far away from this place, not even wanting to touch the corners of this area. At one point, even the strong men in the lower realms who got the news and raised their aura in the territory looked a little surprised. Others thought that Jia Yan had given up, but only Jia Yan understood that the reason why he was so low-key was because the appearance and aura of this strong man were like colorful butterflies, similar to Concubine Kun. Concubine Kun's father? Tisk, no wonder she dares to run rampant anywhere. Such a father is probably not a weakling in the lower ranks of the territory lord. Naturally, she dares to be unscrupulous. Jia Yan did not want to have anything to do with Concubine Kun anymore. Even if he thinks back, what this woman did seemed unreasonable and vaguely seemed to be helping him improve his strength. But even so, Jia Yan did not admit that she was kind to him, especially after she hurt countless Orions. Under the premise of protecting the military and the people, if she dared to do anything, I would never let her off easily. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. Various complex factors led to Jia Yan not wanting to meet this woman's strong father again, otherwise a fight would definitely be awkward in the future. Master, are we going to North Star like this? Do you want to make some preparations? Edisha obviously still has a strong fear of North Star. When she was as Hineo, she was once ordered by Jia Yan to squat on top of the North Star, but in the end she was almost captured by strong men passing by several times. And today is different from the past. Back then, She only controlled the Edisha star and was almost captured by the powerful. Now she is running a palace with a level of 10,000 kilometers. Even the powerful people at the lower level of the territory lord may be jealous. She was naturally frightened by the possibility. Haha, you don't have to worry like a frightened bird. First of all, I have aura in this palace. Strong people generally feel scruples when they feel my aura. Secondly, the palace can stay in the 10-dimensional space. This kind of subspace depth will greatly weaken even the attacks of the domain lord level, let alone the existence below the domain lord level. It is difficult for them to even sense the palace. And the last point, that is me today, it's completely different from what it was back then. If you raise the alarm, I can fly out from inside the North Star to provide reinforcements anytime, anywhere, so there's nothing to worry about. Like a kitten whose tail was stepped on, Edisha jumped up and down like crazy. Who is scared? Edisha is not afraid. The master is good or bad. You can go if you want. Edisha is guarding the house alone. I didn't even take Adissa to go to Superstar, but Edisha also wants to go. It turns out that this little guy has a little temper and is not satisfied. Jia Yan looked at Edisha thoughtfully, and suddenly realized that she had indeed become a living being. In the past, Jia Yan really didn't think much about her mood, but it was different today. After pondering for a moment, he still shook his head and said, Edisha, because you came in a hurry, you should give up the North Star this time. The palace is really not easy to enter the North Star, and someone must watch, so you stay, but I promise that next time I go to Nanjing Superstar, I will try my best to let you in, even if I order Leda to guard it, I will definitely do it. Do you think this is okay? Edisha wiped away the tears that were about to burst out, and suddenly burst into tears and smiled, okay, the master is going to take me to Nanjing Star. Edisha is so happy. This freedom of expression is something that ordinary living beings cannot imitate. Jia Yan complained in his heart, looking at the shocking planet that was blooming bigger and bigger in front of him, and was about to cover the entire world. He let out a long breath. Northern Superstar. After going round and round, Hu Hanyan, am back again. It's just that the person who left a few years ago was just a senior domain master for the first time. In terms of specific strength, he couldn't be called a senior domain master at all. He was just a top domain master with the combat power of a senior domain master. Now, time has passed, only a few years have passed, but at this moment his strength and experience have been improved again, and he has come back to this giant planet that has granted him transformation. The northern giant, located in the north of the black hole area, is 1 light-year in size, which is 946 billion kilometers. This is just the diameter of the planet. If converted into surface area, you can calculate how big it is yourself. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. Anyway, the entire surface area of the Earth, if placed inside this planet, would not even be comparable to a larger fish pond. Originally such a giant planet, even with the size of Jia Yan's body, he is as small as gravel, and he can live quite comfortably. However, what is even more amazing is that the life forms that enter this planet must not reach the level of Tai's Hang level, otherwise the body will be compressed by the laws of the planet itself and become the size of ordinary life forms. Even if there is a difference, it will not be too different. In other words, on such a huge planet, the life forms will become smaller. The number of lives that can be accommodated has increased countless times out of thin air. Every time you look down at the North Star from here, you will feel an unreal feeling. The most unreal thing is that this kind of planet was actually created by those powerful people. Thinking about the Supreme Master's miraculous craftsmanship, and thinking about himself as a new territory lord, Jia Yan suddenly couldn't help but wonder, Could he really set foot in a realm that only such beings could set foot on? The closer he got to this strength, the more he couldn't help but have self-doubt. I don't want to think so much anymore. Please inform Leda and follow me to the North Superstar. Okay, I'll let him get ready and wait on the Edisha star. Jia Yan adjusted his aura inside the palace, while Edisha was looking for something outside the huge North Star. Then she quickly located a certain direction and flew for a few days. Only then did we arrive at the sky above the North Star. In front of us is an endless green ocean. The color of the entire Earth, set off by the white clouds, is extremely green and full of vitality. Jia Yan came to the entrance of the palace and looked down at the green swamp, with a hint of reminiscence in his eyes. Master, Leda said he is ready. Well, then I will take him out. In addition, I have prepared 50 positive and negative explosives around the palace. You all know how to use them. In this way, those who want to compete for the palace must be senior domain lord. You may not get a good deal, but just in case, if a powerful enemy comes, you must remember to send a signal to me. With the latest communication capabilities of the palace and my acceptance, it is enough to receive the message. Okay, Edisha understands. After saying that, Jia Yan stood up, jumped out of the palace entrance to the outside of the 10-dimensional space, and then rushed straight to the surface of the Edissa planet. He saw that the submissive Leda had also made a generous gesture on the surface of the planet. Preparation to die. Oh no, this guy was just scared and a little trembling. He probably didn't want to die. Jia Yan used his brainwave power to grab it, picked it up from the subspace, and took it away from the Edisha star. You don't have to worry. Although you haven't been to any superstars, you should believe in my ability. Leda trembled all over and quickly lowered his head in response. He said shyly, Sir, I do believe in your ability, but this is human instinct. I am too weak. In the past, I was just a handyman in the black hole area. I have never dreamed of becoming a superstar, so I am a little bit out of shape, I'm sorry. Jia Yan obviously understood what he was thinking, and said a few words of comfort without laughing or crying. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. In fact, it was Leda, and the original Jia Yan was not much different. Even though he was extremely brave and went straight to the North Star, he was actually being hunted and couldn't find an opportunity to improve his strength in the black hole area, so he had to enter the mysterious The Incomparable Superstar Survives Within. Especially at the moment when he entered the North Star, he felt regretful. Creak. When Jia Yan took Leda out of the subspace, there were immediately some people coming in and out of the superstars around, and they were keenly aware of their presence. Hey, is there anyone else who wants to come and go freely in this area? Hee, it seems that one of the two people should be a domain lord level, and the other one doesn't look like a domain lord level at all. If it is the subspace existence of a new arrival here, there will be a good show. Haha, I remember a time when a strong man from the subspace came here. He thought that after becoming a superstar, he could use the talent of the subspace to move freely. However, he fell into the subspace in mid-air and was trapped alive in the subspace. He was still in the domain. As for the main level, he died like a sandwich cookie, it was so laughable. This was a joke many years ago. According to me, people must know about North Star. Do you expect to see a similar joke again? That's not certain. Look, this guy is here, and he's still grabbing someone. Hey, this is going to be a good show. It's easy to go wrong if you grab someone while falling and being compressed. He's so arrogant. I'd like to see if he doesn't let go for the sake of face. Puff puff. The voices of the few strong men observing him behind him could still be heard in his ears. Jia Yan had already grabbed Leda and rushed into the upper space of the large green space. Within a distance of millions of kilometers, the terrifying pressure field of the entire northern superstar has been suppressed to the surface of the body, causing pressure changes visible to the naked eye on the bodies of the two. Jiayan originally had an azure color change on the surface of the giant mosquito, preparing to resist this pressure, but after thinking about it, he changed his mind and went to Shiyuan to cancel the automatic resistance of azure defense. But Leighton next to him was different. He was dancing and his eyes were about to bulge out, as if he had endured extremely difficult and uncomfortable things. "Don't resist," Jiayan sent a message to him. Leita quickly restrained the released mid-level galactic strength and allowed the pressure to act on himself. Soon, a more painful meaning appeared in his expression, trembling as if on a massage table. This kind of pain was extraordinary. When Jiayan first entered, he also suffered similar pressure. He even suspected several times that the great men who created several superstars deliberately made it so painful and troublesome, which led to superstar maintains a parallel world separation from the outside world. Otherwise, either the strong people inside will run out to enjoy the happiness and break all the rules and three views of the outside world, or the strong people from outside will run into superstar, causing the internal strength and the chaos has gone down a level. He looked around, found a place where a tornado was sweeping through crazily, and grabbed Leita and plunged into it. In this way, although the speed of descent has become faster, the pressure has been reduced a lot. This is also the skill that Jiayan figured out at the beginning. Now he is leading Leita in pain to repeat the same trick, which can be regarded as sharing the hard work for his men. What a great boss! This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. As for himself? Click. Although he was also compressing, Jiayan was keenly aware that he could compress, but any organ in his body remained vaguely motionless. If he did not want to be compressed, it seemed that he would not be compressed. The compression power of the North Star, it is already difficult to threaten yourself. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2987. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. But the price is that if he doesn't want to be compressed, he can't sink in. It's like air can't sink into water, and he is excluded by the North Star. So he allowed the force of compression to compress certain parts of his body. It was not as painful as the previous time when even atoms and molecules were compressed. This compressed power seems somewhat similar to Tongtian Road. Could it be that the idea itself was created by the same person? This is really a shocking discovery. You must know that although the two are similar, their essential effects and external performances are completely different. This shows how talented the maker is. Jiayan knew that with his elm head, even if he entered a level above the territory lord, it would be difficult for him to conceive the ideas and creativity of such geniuses. That was not his area of expertise. Not long after, the ground got closer and closer, and Leita's cries of ghosts and wolf howls disappeared at a certain moment, and he stared blankly at the world in front of him. His figure shrunk to about 3 meters, and the entire earth seemed to have been enlarged countless times. A creature that was originally dozens of kilometers in size felt extremely small when facing the mountains and forests on the ground. You know, he already had a similar feeling. I haven't experienced this for a long time. Haha, welcome to North Star. As half a host, Jiayan smiled leisurely and said to Leita in a joking tone. In mid-air, the senses of heaven and earth have changed. Jiayan is reliving the senses he has not experienced for a long time while stabilizing the somewhat panicked Leita. Like Jiayan, Leita almost smashed his head into the ground uncontrollably when he first entered the planet, killing himself alive. Of course, even if Jiayan didn't assist him, he wouldn't be able to forget about flying, he would just be a little embarrassed. Sir, is this the North Star? My body, my perception, all have changed. Leda felt that her outlook on life had been impacted like never before. Jia Yan looked at his frightened look and was quite relieved, as if the mirror he had arrived at was happening again. However, he would not let Leda go through the same fear as he did when he first came to the North Superstar, and there might even be danger. Now, after entering the North Star, he has evolved from a giant mosquito of less than 3 meters when he came last time to about 5 meters now. This is still about the same size as when he evolved into a senior domain lord here last time. After all, Jia Yan is not a huge race, so it is within a reasonable range. This place is called Ludi Forest, covering about tens of thousands of kilometers, so we have to fly as soon as possible to go to certain forces. The first thing I want to find is among these forces. Of course, is there anything I want to find? The kind of effect you want depends on the actual situation. Jia Yan moved his body and led Leda on a rampage, clearing a path through the mountain forest. Sir, be careful. Suddenly, Leda's hair stood on end and he stood in front of Jia Yan. He noticed that a giant bird descended from the sky, preparing to attack Jia Yan, so Leda subconsciously took action. However, what surprised him was that a bird that did not seem to be very sane was actually in his own body. With one blow, he stretched out his claws and struck his arm. Then the giant bird flew backwards and flew away. Leda himself also staggered and flew several meters away, and he was stunned. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. This is. His face was extremely ugly. He thought he had stepped into the middle level of the galaxy. He was quite confident in his current strength. Although it was impossible to run rampant in the black hole area, at least he would not be defeated by Bay. Are ordinary forest birds in Superstar repelled? But such a fantastical thing happened right before our eyes. Haha, don't worry, this is a normal situation. Its strength is only at the elementary level of the galaxy. You just haven't adapted to the environment of the North Star. Otherwise, killing it will be easy. Jia Yan laughed loudly and pulled gently with his foot, and the giant bird that might be extremely troublesome for Leda was pulled to his eyes. The giant bird obviously had some wisdom. After encountering Jia Yan's pull, it immediately flapped its wings and struggled, but its wings were still firmly held by Jia Yan, unable to struggle at all. I know you have developed a lot of sanity. If you want to save your life, just be our mount. Otherwise, we will immediately tear you apart and make you die. The giant bird trembled fiercely and stopped moving obediently. Under Leda's surprised gaze, he allowed Jia Yan's giant mosquito body to climb up his body. This giant bird was about 10 meters tall. It should be what kind of giant race is it? Jia Yan went up and asked Leda to sit next to him. There was no crowding at all. With a roar, the giant bird began to fly over the mountain forest. The entire land was in full view. Even from a long distance, no powerful creature dared to provoke them. The giant bird must have always been one of the giants in this forest area. 1. How's it going? Are you frightened by the appearance of the North Star? Jia Yan smiled while looking at the scenery of the mountains and leisurely chatting with Leda beside him. Leda seemed to be still in the shock of arriving for the first time and seeing the new world. It wasn't until Jia Yan talked to him that he woke up from his dream and said with a bitter smile, Sir Hui Bing, I participated in the battle to create the world. Later, I thought I had experienced the weirdest things in the world, but I didn't expect that when I came to this northern giant star, I realized that this place is the weirdest place in the entire galaxy. It was really an eye-opener. Thank you Master Jia Yan for letting me know. Increase your knowledge. To be honest, although he had been living in the black hole area before and often looked up at the 4 giant stars, he never dared to have even the slightest idea of venturing into it because he knew that he was not from this world. This is indeed the case. If Jia Yan hadn't followed him just now and he entered the North Star, He might have been calculated by the giant bird, or someone stronger than him would have emerged from this mountain forest and attacked him. Killing, even if he could venture out of the mountains and forests and encounter bad or good local forces, it would be enough to kill Leda. However, he is self-aware, and he would never come without Jia Yan. But Jia Yan looked at the giant's strange bird he was riding on and felt a little confused. He remembered that when he first arrived a few years ago, he knew that galaxy-level powerhouses were not allowed to exist in this Ludi forest. Do you know what's going on with Angzi's power today? Jia Yan asked. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Not long after the giant bird's intelligence first opened, it tilted its head and thought for a long time, and chirped a few times. Jia Yan's head hurt when he heard it, so he simply didn't ask. Anyway, the giant bird must not have known the reason. Along the way, Jia Yan led the way, first of all, to the so-called Angzi forces. My destination is the Great God Domain, but I am not familiar with the forces in the Great God Domain and have not had much contact with them. It is a better choice to try to contact them through the Angzi forces. As for contacting the controller forces, let them do it for you. Jia Yan thought for a while and finally sighed deeply, not wanting to do that in his heart. The power that controls it is actually the power that the little princess controls. If she knows her whereabouts. In Jia Yan's eyes, there were faint memories echoing, as if he had returned to that era when war clouds were thick. It's not that he doesn't want to meet these old people again, but that he is not ready to meet these old friends together, and he came to Beostar for a purpose, that is, to resolve some old grudges. Then we have to get things done first. I hope that the power of the Master's family can be sustained until now. If I go out and find that the entire power has been besieged and destroyed, the most I can do is defeat the besieging power and avenge them. Jia Yan is not nostalgic as he imagined, especially for the power of the Masters who made him today's strength. Because after all, the relationship between the two parties is just a relationship between use and being used. When Jia Yan worked for the Masters, they provided a large amount of training resources and skills. In essence, the two parties exchanged benefits. Resemblance. It's just that the little devil princess Master Sela is still a relatively valued friend of Jia Yan. If given the opportunity, he is willing to help her. Secondly, there is his only apprentice Xiao in Beoxing. She is cute and has no brain. She is almost 7 or 8 years old now. She is old enough to teach cultivation. I have to go and see her current situation. If something happened to her, then the nature of the problem would be different. After all, Xiao is his apprentice. Even in terms of the apprenticeship level he considers, it is higher than the major apprentices in the yin-yang sect outside. If something happens to her, then Jia Yan will still be the disciple. If he is a little angry, of course the key is that his strong majesty has been seriously challenged, and he will definitely take action. Well, in Jia Yan's wild thoughts, he did not deliberately hide his aura, causing Leighton next to him, who was trying to adapt to this new planet, to tremble violently. He quietly looked at his master next to him and quickly restrained his aura, for fear of affecting his mood. Bad adults. Even the big bird under the seat felt an extremely solemn feeling of fear. It increased its speed with lightning speed and crashed directly into the Great God's domain in the distance. The realm of the Great God is officially called the House of the Great God. The name of the domain is because although they only occupy a small piece of Ludi forest, they dare to spread the news here, seemingly break away from the Master's family, and establish a small piece of their own domain here. What's amazing is that even in the face of such big words, it's a bit humiliating to the power of the Master family, but the Master family miraculously chose to remain silent. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The House of the Great God. A power established in the mountains and forests. The first thing that catches the eye is the vast expanse of green blending into the forest. At first glance, it looks no different from the woods outside. However, Leda, who was holding his breath and concentrating, suddenly opened his eyes, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Don't panic," Jia Yan's voice rang in his ears, making Leda calm down, and nodded. Before they could reach the mountain forest over there, in the green sea of the great god's house, many strong men were already rising from the ground. They looked at the two strong men and a giant bird coming here as if they were faced with a formidable enemy. Why did that bird become someone else's mount? Pay attention to your feelings. On the giant bird, there is a galaxy class sitting on it, and the other one is not much worse than the galaxy class. Raised to level 2 alert. There was a strong man who gave orders in an orderly manner, and then calmly looked at Yuniao and the two strong men who were driving straight in. "You two, I wonder if you came to my master's house for a transaction or something else." Jia Yan looked at him. Although in the North Star, it was difficult to tell whether the other party was true or false to those who hid their strength, but at the lower level of the territory lord, the influence of this binding force on him became quite weak. Jia Yan could clearly see that the opponent's strength is that of a strong person at the beginning of the galaxy. "Deal, let the domain lord in your power come forward, and I will make a deal with him." Jia Yan's outspoken style simply frightened the other party to the point of trembling. There is a territory lord in charge of their great god's house. This is an open secret, but no one has ever asked for a territory lord to come forward. Is this guy really pissed, or is he just pretending? He looked at the other party deeply, and then said in a less decisive tone, "Friend, please wait a moment, let me go and report, but I can't guarantee whether the domain lord of our great god's house is willing to see you." "Don't want to see me? Your arrogance is too great. Be careful of causing disaster. The interface is Leda." Jia Yan glanced at him approvingly, but said, "Leda, don't be unreasonable and want to destroy other people's power at every turn. I am definitely not such a person." "Yes, it's my subordinate Meng Lang." Leda quickly clasped his fists and stepped aside respectfully. Such an attitude made the departing galaxy class pause for a moment, take a deep look at the waiting giant Mosquito and Leda, and then nodded and left. At least Leda's deliberate behavior made him understand one thing, that is, the other party dared to say anything about destroying their power even when they knew that their master's house had a domain lord level. This meant that these two uninvited guests had no intention of destroying their power. The strength of the great god's house is not high. His breathing became rapid. "Leda, do this from now on." "Okay, Master Jia Yan." Jia Yan spoke from behind and praised Leda. Otherwise, it is necessary for Jia Yan to bring Leda here deliberately. In addition to the psychological and physical discomfort caused by the sudden shrinkage of the body and the big changes in the environment at the beginning, he will bring a very pleasant travel experience to Jia Yan. After all, he is better than Eddie Sha is good at observing faces, and she is also good at licking dogs. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. If Jia Yan doesn't want to speak, Leda can help him do it. If Jia Yan doesn't want to do something, Leda can do it. Even if Jia Yan can't pretend in person, Leda can help him pretend. After all, North Star was a bit weak last time, so it would be nice to have a wingman to help regain the ground this time. It must be great to have such a superstar experience. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2988. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. When it comes to superstars, they are superstars. Even a mysterious force like the great god's house does create a lot of pressure for an existence that suddenly arrives. In particular, Leda assisted from the side and angrily scolded the greeter, which shocked him. After retreating, he directly approached his head domain leader with a serious attitude. Even he himself doesn't know why this is the case. Don't know the specific strength. Yes, but I estimate that this person is at least not an ordinary domain lord. Chief, why don't you go out and take a look? The domain lord, who heard the name of the visitor, pondered for a moment, then nodded and went out. The two sides met. My friend, I wonder why you have come all the way to my great god's home. The opponent is a pig man rowing a boat. It should be a funny scene, but when it comes to this strong man, it doesn't feel funny at all. Instead, it adds a lot of mystery. Jia Yan did not respond directly to him, but said kindly, I have heard for a long time that the great god's house has the power of rejuvenation. I wonder if it is true. Huh, the other party's expression changed. In fact, the reason why the house of the great god is able to gain a foothold in this land of masters, and even establish its own business, is because of their ability to save lives and heal the wounded with the holy hands of medicinal pills. Therefore, they stay here not only for the convenience of collecting medicines, but also to provide special assistance to the master's forces. The reason was to make the master's forces turn a blind eye to their actions, and to make use of their ability to save lives and treat people, so that another large force opposite the Ludi forest did not add insult to injury when the master's forces were in turmoil. These 2 points are the reasons why they continue to exist and are quite popular. Generally speaking, they are secretive hospitals, or hospital forces. But most people probably don't know this. Your Excellency, you are joking. How can I, the great master, have such ability? Even if I do, it is something that cannot be put on the stage. Jia Yan interrupted the other party's words and said calmly, a few years ago, during the Northern War, 2 mid-level warriors from the galaxy who had won military exploits nearly died of their injuries. In the end, they were sent to your place for treatment, right? In addition, a large number of medicines in the land of ice and snow are also produced by your country, right? In fact, I have many similar examples. Do you need me to give examples one by one? The other party immediately became speechless. After a moment of silence, he sighed and nodded, yes, our great god's house does have some meager medical skills. Now that you have mastered our information, what do you want? The other party is really mentally disturbed. They seem to be incompatible with the master's forces. In fact, the real situation is that the great god's house deliberately claims independence in this borderland in order to obtain medical resources from surrounding forces. After all, making medicine also requires medicinal materials, and the land happens to be an area that is not rich in medicinal materials. By the way, they also deceived other forces into giving them funds for independence. If even the unfamiliar and powerful people know a lot about the inside story of their great god's house, then they are still doing a shitty business, and maybe there will be powerful people from other forces coming to kill them tomorrow. Jia Yan and Leda were invited into this seemingly primitive place. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. As for the giant bird monster, Jia Yan waved it away grandly. My friend, you are really generous. A flying bird and beast, and it is a galaxy-level existence, is the mount that countless strong men dream of, and you let it go at your request. Inside this northern giant, the pressure and gravity are so great that even the domain lords stand on the ground when nothing happens. This shows how attractive the bird mounts are to the powerful. But Jia Yan let him go. Haha, it's just a bird monster, not a domain lord level. What do I want him to do? Jia Yan smiled lightly. But it aroused the other party's fear. This is definitely not a show-off. That bird is a galaxy-level bird that can be exchanged for many of the medicinal materials they have here. But Jia Yan lets it go, as he says, just for the sake of show-off. The price is too high. I'll tell you the truth. I've heard for a long time that the great god's family has strong medical capabilities, and has even extended the lives of those in charge of the master's family several times. I respect this ability very much, so I came here specifically to customize some medicine for certain races. Life-prolonging medicine. Prolong life? The master's family. The other party's demeanor changed several times, but in the end it was Gujing Bubo who said calmly, "Although your excellency seems to know a lot of things, you are also a little biased. However, this is your own point of view and has nothing to do with my great god's house. As for you, the things raised can be." Jia Yan relaxed and was about to speak, but the other party continued, "But you have to understand that medicine is a very patchy and complicated thing. Every race, every life form, and every form has specific details: strength, specific past, composition of life, living environment, stress level, etc., can easily affect the lifespan of a living body. So if you need something to extend your life, we can only say yes, but we cannot guarantee it. It can definitely be done, but there is no guarantee that it will not have side effects and accelerate the premature death of the user. Do you understand what I mean? We are not gods, nor are we geniuses who can develop advanced drugs out of thin air. Everything should be done based on a large amount of experimental data and research." This time it was Jia Yan's turn to be silent. It's not that he doesn't understand these principles, but deep in his memory, he admires the ability of this great god's house. Especially in the past of the master's power, many high-level officials were very fascinated when they heard about the great god's house. Sexy, because they have saved countless high-level powerful people. Jia Yan fought many times in the northern campaign and organized troops, so he knew many secrets of the great god's house. However, he missed one point. Neither science nor medicine can be achieved overnight. So it's okay to have confidence in them, but you can't blindly follow them. Okay, I understand. In this way, I have genetic samples of the treatment target in my hand. If you are willing to help, I will give you some, and then through your cultivation and evaluation, you will inform me of the final results. I am willing to wait during this period. What do you think? Of course that's possible. Well, in addition, these samples of mine belong to life forms other than the northern superstar. You have to take this into consideration. Beyond the North Star. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. The other party paused for a moment while receiving the information, but quickly returned to normal and nodded to receive a few genetic samples. This sample is Jia Yan's characteristic for Biostar. It was compressed by his own power in the outside world. There should not be much damage when it comes in. It contains mainly genetic samples from Satsuma Shrine, and others from parents, sisters, and even children. Sample. At most, it's only for the sake of my sister and children. No matter how far away relatives were, or great-grandchildren, it wasn't that Jia Yan couldn't help them, but the relationship was too far away and he would be endlessly helpful. Moreover, it seems that no great-grandchildren have been born yet, and there are even fewer distant relatives. Because outsiders are involved, I have to ask more professional people, but the cost of this part. I am fully responsible, Jia Yan said quickly. He once made several windfalls on the North Star. Not to mention the physical goods, he still has the virtual currency card issued by the Master's Power, which contains all the credit for killing enemies and the income from training troops for others. Not to mention being as rich as a country, a small rich man can still be considered. The other party responded and immediately left with the sample. Sir, it turns out you are here. Leda has been staying in the Edisha star to practice hard. He was dragged back and forth to the central star field of the Milky Way by Jia Yan. He was also confused. Only now did he know that Jia Yan is not planning to come here again to show off his ambitions, but to think about his family. Yes, although we cultivators can live forever, We are always a little worried. Don't laugh at me for being naive. Jia Yan shook his head and smiled bitterly. No, I only think that you, sir, value your love and justice, and that you are a person worth relying on. Leda shook his head quickly. Don't think he is weak, but he is not young, and almost everyone in the family has left. Those who are left behind are also strong people. I am afraid that under the influence of the strong character, there is no relationship as expected, so I met Jia Yan. After doing this, I sighed a little. Should I also find some life-extending things for my seniors, he thought. The old immortal senior seems to be an ordinary young man in the created world, but in the eyes of this group of outsiders, he is just like an old child. His mind has become confused, and maybe the fire of life has come to an end. And Leda is the junior who asked him to take action. In terms of it, he is also the descendant, but separated by many generations. He couldn't do this for the time being, so he just wrote it down. Probably he can't do it until the old guy dies. After all, the other party is at the domain lord level. Not long after Jia Yan paid a high fee for the test, the other party quickly took the sample and went to the laboratory to get the test results. Well, Mr. Jia, among the samples you asked for, I really don't know how to extend the lifespan of this one. We can extend the lifespan of the other samples several times appropriately. You see, this is the data. Jia Yan received the test and evaluation report of the sample. After he read it, a look of helplessness appeared on Giant Mosquito's face. It's really hard to extend Satsuma's lifespan, because she is a biochemical creation, and is so perfect that it can be called the pinnacle of genetic creations. However, a short lifespan is the price of perfection, and even with the power of the great God's house, there is nothing that can be done about it. As for relatives, it's easier to say. To put it bluntly, the genes of people on Earth are far simpler than those of races that have struggled to survive in the Milky Way for countless years. When they got the genetic samples just now, they were shocked by such simple and monotonous genes. After all, the genetic problems on giant stars are too complicated. Well, everyone is the descendant of the outside world, with various origins, and then there are a group of mixed races. Then these races have experienced countless years, and there are countless viruses, mutations, infections, and all kinds of problems. The species produced in the northern giant star are so complex that a report of hundreds of billions of words can be written. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. This is just the wedge. Therefore, they understood the problem of life extension for people on Earth at a glance, and immediately gave hundreds of plans, and selected 10 that were more feasible and effective, and pushed them to Jia Yan. The most extended life is 5 or 6 times. Is there anyone who can extend life more than 10 times? Unexpectedly, Jia Yan didn't appreciate the contents of this report. 10 times, if you want to make a joke, just turn left when you go out. The strong man at the domain lord level quickly became cold. He is the home of the great god, and the entire North Star dare not say that, but within hundreds of millions of kilometers around it, there are at least people with above-average research capabilities. Jia Yanruo just wanted to find someone to entertain himself, but he was looking for the wrong place. I'm sorry, I know you are professionals, but you can also see that these gene masters are only quite weak existences. If their lifespan is increased several times, it will only be more than 1,000 years at most, and it may not even last 1,000 years. If it is 10 times more, it may exceed the lifespan of 2,000 years. This is not a particularly long life for us and the territory lords. I hope you can pay more attention. If you can help me with this, I am willing to help you. Once. The other party was shocked. Now that the transaction has come to an end, Jia Yan has been waiting for them for several days. During the transaction, he vaguely noticed that this person who seemed to be from the outside world but had knowledge of the northern superstar was probably a territory lord above. In other words, a senior domain master. Such a being, even if he comes to the master's power, is a powerful person, the backbone of the army, or the top being in the master's family. But are you willing to continue your life for a life form with such little genes? And are you willing to take action again? After thinking about it, the other party calmly said, 10 times, it's not impossible, but this involves very precious medicinal materials, and they may not even be available on the North Star. The price is extremely expensive. You are willing to pay this price, find it you and our master's family may not want to be thankless, therefore, your move must show a level that is enough for us to go all out. The implication is that he feels that even if Jia Yan is a senior domain master, it is not necessarily necessary for them to go all out. Their time and energy are also precious. Buzz. The next moment, he felt the air vibrate. The giant mosquito that had been standing opposite him came to him in the blink of an eye, and the two sides were almost touching each other. The territory lord's scalp was numb, and he was about to make a counterattack, but was pinned to the ground by a shocking force, unable to move. You know, the great god's house is not a weak force. He is not a medical professional but can sit here, which shows that he is strong in combat effectiveness and is the last force protector of the entire great god's house. He is a fighting domain master. However, such a being was suddenly approached by the opponent, and a foot was placed on his shoulder, making him unable to move. Do you understand? Jia Yan stepped back a few steps with a smile. Ming, understood. We will do our best. The leader of the territory lord of the great god's house was in a state of turmoil, and he did not dare to test or refuse at all. He even started to order his subordinates to do things with a slight trembling. Senior Domain Master? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. He is more than suspicious. Even if he is a senior domain lord, he is definitely the best among senior domain lords. If he's not a senior domain lord, then he's a junior domain lord. The heart of the first domain lord is beating wildly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2989. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. With such an existence, even if it can only take one action, it is enough to change the status quo of an entire region. Maybe. Can you try to let him save the current precarious situation of the master's power? After work, the leader of the domain lord was thinking a little suspiciously. But there is only one chance to take action. No matter how strong this person is, one chance cannot save the power of the master who is riddled with holes. Thinking of this, he sighed. Not only him, Jia Yan, who came to the great god's house, also tried to collect information through various channels to judge the current situation. But the news I saw at the beginning was not good news. The vast swaths of northern lands such as the snowy land and grassland areas that he led his subordinate troops to resist and defend with all their might had now fallen into the hands of others. There are also several powerful countries that have invaded this country by controlling all aspects of the land. There are still many strong men who defected before the battle, or fled before the war. Now, in addition to losing a large territory in the north, the power of the master has also nominally lost about half of its military strength. This is quite an exaggeration. With half the military strength, if you are not careful, you may be killed by the enemy directly to the capital and attack Huanglong. Without Adisha's help in distributing the information, even if Jia Yan asked Leda to help, he didn't get anything too specific while waiting. In short, After the great god's family agreed, it has already begun to prepare the materials for the development of life-prolonging drugs. Because it is a targeted development, the material requirements are not only large, but also very complicated. The only advantage is that the genes of the people on Earth are too simple. They have selected several types from the improvement plans and prepared to create corresponding potions. The preparation work takes a long time, and equipment purchase and distribution are not things that happen in a short time. Sir, I wonder how you should pay for that opportunity. The domain lords of the great god's house seem to have become less busy after Jia Yan came to them, and they circle around Jia Yan all day long. What do you think? It's okay if I take action now. If you can trust me, you can wait until I get what I want, and then let me take action. However, we have agreed in advance that the target must be reasonable. If you let me challenge the creation, I don't have the power of North Star. Just kidding, of course we won't be that stupid. The domain lord's eyes flickered, but he did not directly make his request. Jia Yan nodded. In fact, he understood that the longer he delayed, it meant that the other party really regarded this matter as an important matter. Presumably the territory lord of the great god's house can feel that Jia Yan is at least a senior territory lord, and a senior territory lord is equivalent to a nearly invincible existence in this land of Neo. Moreover, Jia Yan's aura was so powerful that he felt a combat-type aura. You must know that among superstars, there are fighting strong people and non-combat strong people. Fighting strong people are much stronger than strong people in other aspects. This day, I dare to guarantee it with my personality. There's no need to be in a dilemma. At this point, why do you still worry so much? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Other forces. Haha, even if it is from other forces, a senior domain master, we have to borrow wherever we can, so you people who eat public food are too rigid-minded. In the guest room of a wooden house in the distance, Jia Yan had a good time and sat at the table. On the table was a steaming cup of fragrant tea, which was a specialty of the Ludi forest. A sip left the fragrance on his lips and teeth. He took out the mouth needle from the cup of fragrant tea and inhaled gently. The sweet breath entered the body from the mouth parts, causing a burst of pleasure. Sir, this North Star is simply, it is an eye-opener for me, and there is such enjoyment. Leda was also sitting at the table, sipping tea and looking around. She felt that her previous life had been in vain. Having a high status in the outside world is of no use. Resources are scarce wherever you go, and training materials are extremely difficult to find, let alone living in a house and drinking such stylish tea. He is one of those living beings who are not too small at birth. I am afraid that he has never thought about having a house in his life. Superstars are naturally good, otherwise there wouldn't be so many strong people coming here to retire. But if those without strength come here, it won't be so easy to get along. Jia Yan nodded. Leda understood what he said, otherwise why he didn't dare to come to the North Superstar when he was in the black hole area, because he knew that there would be great danger here. However, the person accompanying him on his adventures was a lower-ranking territory lord, so that was another matter. Sir, tell me, who is this house of great gods planning to let you take action against? Could it also be a lower-level domain lord? Leda asked a little sneakily. Jia Yanyun smiled calmly. No, there is no domain lord backstage within 1 billion kilometers around this area. How do you know? Leda was startled and then responded, yes, I forgot that you have been to Biostar before. I must have your footprints here. It's my head that's cramped. Jia Yan shook his head. The two of them continued to drink the fragrant tea. Jia Yan was listening to something while drinking, and then smiled vaguely. Biostar's restrictions on brainwave power are astonishing, but that is for ordinary strong men, domain lords, and senior domain lords. When you reach the level of the post-domain lord, it seems to have entered a new world. Jia Yan's brainwave power enough to hear many sounds for several kilometers around. He listened to the entire communication sent by the leader of the domain from beginning to end. It seems like there won't be too many territory lords in the northern superstar. Otherwise, this kind of contact will definitely make some arrangements for the territory lords in the rear. We don't need 2 unique defensive items. I'll block a few more boards. Maybe you can't even hear it? What does this mean? It means that at least the ordinary companies, engineering teams, and even the army in this area have not thought about defending the lower levels of the domain lord. Either there is really no such strong person nearby, or they think that even if there is now, I can't resist it. Probably a bit of both. This, Senior. The research and development work will last about 2 to 3 months. If you are free, tomorrow I will take you to the place where your help is needed. What do you think? The domain lord level probably communicated some answers, and when he came back, his steps were a little firm. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. It doesn't matter, I'll just run with you. Jia Yan waved his foot. The other party suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that he would meet the kind of person who said he was willing to help, but in the end, the target of the attack was delivered to him. If you can send the enemy, do you still need to take action? Fortunately, Jia Yan is not like this. On the second day, Jia Yan, the territory lord from the great god's house, and several territory lord-level subordinates rode the unique flying tool of the great god's house. It felt like an airplane, but there was something strange about it. And rise. Leda looked at the shrinking forest below and began to sigh again. This novel experience is extremely comfortable every second for a monster like him who has been huge all his life. Especially when safety is guaranteed. Senior, the area we are currently in is called the Master Force. It is a force controlled by the Master family. Their clan leader. Jia Yan interrupted the other party. Needless to say, I already know about the Master from the internet. You just need to tell me who the target is. The other party who wanted to slowly advance the topic looked ugly. Ahem, it's like this. The Master's force has been invaded by several major forces recently, and an important city is about to be lost. If you are willing, can you remove the strongest enemy for them? This person is not strong. I guess it's just the peak of the junior domain master. Jia Yan looked at him with a half smile but not a smile. Aren't you from the great god's house? Why did you get involved with the master's forces? No, senior, you are overthinking. Our great god's house only looks after itself in name, but it is by no means separated from the power of the master. Jia Yan waved his feet. I don't care about so many yes or nos. In short, you decide the position. When I arrive, I will get off the plane and kill the strongest enemy, right? Then let this machine fly faster. Ah, yes. As early as the day before yesterday, when the other party tentatively called Jia Yan Sr., Jia Yan did not refute. The leader of the great god's house guessed that Jia Yan's strength was definitely higher than that of the territory lord. Now he is even more obedient. Jia Yan didn't point it out, not to mention that he had shed blood and shed tears for this land, but that's why I didn't shed tears. In the private room of the plane, he practiced without any distractions. Jia Yan also tried to extend one foot into the subspace, and found that the subspace of Biostar was still as solid, but compared to the time when he could only enter one. Ziyawai is much better, maybe it's not a big problem to just go back and forth in it. But it's very public. There is nothing urgent now, so I won't waste this energy. In fact, many of the flight paths overlapped with Jia Yan's when he was walking and taking the train. The scenery back then was also unique and beautiful when viewed from the sky. This area of houses has also been damaged. The enemy probably hasn't reached here yet. Jia Yan discovered something and stared at the collapsed ruins below. It happened to be mealtime, and everyone was eating in the restaurant. The leader of the great god's house followed his gaze and shook his head. The enemy did not attack here, but the most chaotic thing is the human heart. Jia Yan understood instantly. At the beginning, he was in the land of the master and experienced the scene of being hunted by the people. At that time, he was thinking that if the people's heart was used well, it would be really good. If it was used poorly, it would be a disaster. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. In an era of war, people's hearts are almost all about self-preservation, and some rebellious people will regard other people around them as the key to their own self-preservation. Loot and kill. Leda also looked outside and didn't feel anything. For beings like them who have lived for hundreds of years, they may have seen similar scenes countless times. Jia Yan also has an ancient well without waves. The further they flew forward, the more similar scenes of ruined walls appeared, until there were strong men flying into the sky below, roaring at them to stop. Secret official letter, release, give me a passcode. The strong man looked at the badge given by the leader of the great god's house, and his expression quickly changed. They were able to move forward again. After flying for another 5 days, we finally arrived. The ground was already covered with war clouds, and sometimes even enemy anti-aircraft weapons were fired at the aircraft. Fortunately, everyone is powerful, and those weapons are only controlled by the weak. Even if bullets and cannonballs can reach the plane, they will be easily blocked by their brainwave power. On the plane, the domain master of the great god's house was chatting. After our army was defeated in the north, these troops were newly trained based on the strategy of a general who was talented in strategic art. Now they are fighting against the enemy's 10 million troops of the Three Kingdoms allied forces with an extremely disadvantaged 2 million men. Leda said in surprise, 2 million versus 10 million, how is it possible? Is it all because of that general that these soldiers are so powerful? The other party nodded, yes, if it weren't for that general, I'm afraid, my master's power would not be able to protect so much of his homeland at this time. It's a pity, God is jealous of talents, and that young and promising general was killed in a crazy counterattack by the enemy. Life or death is unknown. If he is still alive, we may not even be able to lose the power of the north. Ahem. Jia Yan had just inhaled some wine with a mouth needle, and when he heard this, he coughed awkwardly. Will the territory lord's backsteps choke? Impossible, he was just covering up his embarrassment. Senior, what's wrong with you? It's nothing, you can continue chatting. Leda was obviously very curious about the strong man who could train elite soldiers, and asked specifically, then do you know the name of that general? Of course I know, his name is Jia Yan. He is a rising star of my power. It's a pity, if General Jia Yan is here, what kind of power will I have? Worry about the army in front of you. The leader of the great god's house has forgotten that he is a member of the anti-master force. Jia Yan felt choked again, got up and started to make preparations. Sir, what are you doing? Leda was shocked and confused. Jia Yan said quickly, I have sensed the front line area, and also grasped the aura of a person. I think that person is the person you want me to take action. I will make preparations and kill him quickly and finish the matter quickly. The leader of the domain lord of the great god's house was confused. No, don't you go down and meet with our garrison generals. What about preparations in advance? Don't you need to do neither the attack nor the retreat route? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Jia Yan turned around solemnly, his eyes flashing with arrogance. He said word by word, None of this is necessary, you just need to ask them not to cause trouble for me. Okay. The leader of the great god's house quickly went to the communication room to express Jia Yan's intention. Leda also took the opportunity to come to Jia Yan. Sir, are you really going to risk thousands of troops? Is the power of the master worth it? Why not move secretly at night? It is also very convenient to move at night on this planet. Jia Yan shook his head. It's true that Leda does it for his own good, but Leda doesn't know that almost all of Jia Yan's previous experience as a North Star was spent in the power of the Master, and there is also a trace of concern for him here. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2990. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Jia Yan is willing to take action in public to give the Master even a small amount of morale. The devastation along the way shows that the Master's power has indeed reached its end. If it continues like this, either the Master will surrender and be automatically divided, or all of them will be killed dozens or hundreds of years later. But Jia Yan is back. Woo! The speed of the plane suddenly increased, making a whining sound. This aircraft, which appeared to be for civilian use but actually had a lot of defensive armor, was also discovered below. People from both sides sent communication inquiries to each other, wanting to know what was going on with this aircraft. The masters quickly received a response, but as for the enemy, all the messages they sent fell into disarray. Enemy attack. No matter if it's a civilian aircraft or not, shoot it down. Seeing that the enemy camp was not far ahead, the atmosphere on the plane reached its peak. They are not afraid of the plane being shot down. They are all masters anyway and can still do such things as flying. What they fear is the enemy troops who greet them. You can get off the plane at the border, and I'll go first. Jia Yan seemed to regard the bustling enemy troops as nothing, opened the door of the plane, and rushed out. The domain master of the great god's house in the rear and the two crew members flying the plane, including Leda, all got off the plane without saying a word. However, what went against Jia Yan was that Jia Yan directly carried Gangfeng and crashed into the enemy's lair, while Leda and the others flew backwards and entered the position of the master's troops. It's a complete mess down there. This plane, which came with fireworks and various attacks from the enemy, brought a little commotion to both sides of the war. The most surprising thing is that the ones that fell down seemed to be strong men who could fly, but among these strong men, one of them ran straight into the enemy's front line. Look who it is. Those who were able to reach here unimpeded were obviously given special permission by the Master's forces. The commanders on the front line felt their scalps go numb, fearing that some high-ranking officer would die on the front line and cause trouble. The Master's forces were in a hurry, but compared to the reaction on the other side, it was nothing compared to the reaction. After all, the plane crashed down and a strong man fell from the plane. To them, it was a considerable air attack. Although this is not like an airstrike, it is more like a suicide attack. Die. Suddenly, the first venerable class to react fired a powerful bullet into the air that could only be effective in a superstar. Everyone else also reacted, but saw bursts of barrages in the sky and the earth, and amid the fireworks, the giant mosquito was like a dancer dancing on the pointed rays of death, elegantly and calmly finding a way out of the barrage, twisting and turning. Moving his body, he avoided death shots one after another. Even if there are a few that are really unavoidable, his 2 feet emitting azure light will directly fly them away. The place where Jia Yan landed was the one that exuded the strongest aura in the tent, a combat-type domain lord level powerhouse. This is the great enemy of the Master's power in this area. He has annexed approximately millions of square kilometers of land alone. It is rumored that he can even find a way to escape from the hands of senior domain lords. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Today, The territory lord's face changed wildly for several times. Although he could not feel the level of the assassin who was coming, he must be somewhat capable if he dared to attack him openly in front of so many people. He didn't think too much about showing off his strength, but chose to use his skills safely. Flashing. Yes, this strong man actually mastered it. To some extent, he took advantage of the strong gravity of the North Star to activate the blinking function. Maybe such a skill would be useless to the outside world, but when used inside the North Star, it would be useless. The effect is better than the starting space talent to some extent. And this is also the reason why this domain lord dares to personally go to the front line to supervise the battle. Flash. So fast. Faced with skills that the outside world has never seen before, Jia Yan is just an inexperienced newcomer. But this newcomer's ability is not comparable to other people who meet him for the first time. He is a late-level territory lord, and this ability allows him to find a way to deal with any unexpected situation. In his eyes, the fleeing territory lord's movements were obviously half a beat too slow. He stared straight at the opponent's back, with a slight sparkle in his eyes, and the presence of the territory lord running in front of him felt as if his body was suddenly pulled tightly by something, and his whole person froze for a moment. This moment is enough. A flying stone shot through the head of the domain lord, and in order to prevent him from being reborn again, Jia Yan's brainwave power swept around his body, and the whole person lost his human shape. Oh no, it's not a humanoid creature in the first place. The general is dead. Kill him. The moment he landed, a large number of attacks came, and Jia Yan managed to avoid them. Especially the attack from a mid-level galaxy star made him a little surprised. After all, this was the North Star. However, no matter how arrogant and terrifying these attacks were, they could not pose any more threat to Jia Yan. He was like a saint who did not want to kill again after killing people, avoiding or blocking the crowd's attacks with his bare hands. This big mosquito then performed a kung fu scene like something from an action movie, moving around and dodging while retreating towards the area where the master's power was. The domain lord level opposite is dead. Is this the strong man who controls our power? He is so strong. How could it be possible in just an instant? I won't be dazzled. Last time, a senior domain lord whose power was extremely scarce among us came here specially for this person to attack, but he ran away. I didn't expect to be killed here. Quick, go up and help him get out of trouble. Does Jia Yan need the help of the master's forces? In fact, it is not necessary at all. But he is trying to make his character a little weaker, not much stronger than the senior domain masters, especially within the encirclement, where it is not easy to escape. Not long after, a large group of various soldiers from the master's forces rushed over. One of them was very special. When they joined forces to fight, they could often achieve the result of 1 + 1 being greater than 3. Jia Yan was a little jealous. No wonder, he was able to persist for such a long time even though the troops in the northern region were several times smaller. It turned out that this place was almost completely eroded by his yin-yin dao joint skills. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Even those who have not joined the special forces can cooperate with both hands, and their strength will become more and more outstanding. Without the command of the territory lord, the enemy troops were like monkeys without brains, fighting alone. Their combat effectiveness was not as good as here. Soon they lost their armor and began to collapse. There is no need for Jia Yan to do the next thing. Your Excellency is indeed a good tactic. This one move is worth tens of billions of lives of the power I control. Jia Yan didn't speak, just looked at the soldier who ran up to talk to him. The other party originally wanted Jia Yan to say more polite words, and it was best to see if he could get Jia Yan to take action a few more times, but after seeing Jia Yan's face clearly, His expression changed wildly. Chia, Chia, Chia what? The leader of the domain lord of the great god's house asked strangely. Chia Yan. In an instant, you could hear a pin drop all around. You know, the name Jia Yan, now that the war has been unfavorable, has been spread more and more evilly, and is almost deified. It was rumored that he had extraordinary achievements, but was hidden away. It was also rumored that he was conspired to kill because of the disdain of the master's higher UPS. There were also rumors that he had a relationship with the little princess of the master's force, Master Sela. The relationship is unclear, and there is a messy development with the mother of the master's family. Of course, the latter two rumors were written in very small, non-mainstream newspapers. Anyway, rumors are abuzz. Most of them were praises for this powerful officer who almost single-handedly helped the master's forces stabilize the northern battlefield. It was a pity that he disappeared mysteriously. Behind all the rumors are the results of the power of those in control, allowing them to develop naturally. Perhaps out of guilt for Jia Yan's departure, or perhaps even the controlling forces did not know whether Jia Yan had really died on the battlefield, but they were still very willing to make amends for Jia Yan, so they allowed the people to turn Jia Yan into a god. Change. But today, this deified existence appeared in front of them. To the soldiers and people at the bottom, this was like a bell in the morning and a drum in the evening, frightening all of them to change their demeanor. I believe that it won't be long before the news of the return of Jia Yan, the strongest commander with a very unique name, will spread to the whole world. Click. Thanks. After thanking the secretary for handing over the teacup, Jia Yan sat elegantly on the guest chair in the living room, looking extremely leisurely. And Leda also had time to spare. He was fully aware of Jia Yan's strength, so naturally he wouldn't be shocked. Opposite him were the highest general-level officer of the front-line force, as well as the leader of the House of Gods who led Jia Yan to this area. At this time, the leader of the great god's house could no longer turn his head. He tricked Jia Yan into taking action on behalf of the master force. However, he turned out to be a strong man from the master force himself, and he was also such a well-known strong man. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. In fact, Jia Yan has never concealed his true identity in front of the other party. It can only be said that the power of the great god does not understand the power of the master. Even though Jia Yan became famous in the north, as the leader of the family of the great god, how could I not even remember the appearance of this existence? But it's also possible that it takes some time for information to spread. Jia Yan, sir. My original position was just a school officer. It was far from being a general calling me sir. No, you already are. When you fought against the enemy and were confirmed missing, the superiors crowned you the highest-ranking 5-star general. Really, then I have to thank them. The atmosphere between the two sides was awkward for a while. Missing is a more appropriate term. Generally, more people died in battle in this situation, so when the news was announced, Jia Yan was almost considered to have died in battle. Thinking that he has a relatively high degree of recognition on the internet and among the people, without adding too much fuel and jealousy, some enthusiastic, passionate propaganda wars began. He was built into a leader who controls the power and is bound to win. Character, with the help of interested people, the top leaders of the controlling force had to make a decision, that is, to award Jia Yan the title of 5-star general. But after a while, the heat had not subsided, and Jia Yan came back alive and kicking. You said it's embarrassing or not? I'm not someone who cares about my reputation. That's how it was back then. You can go and find out. Jia Yan suddenly laughed. Yes, I am actually an admirer of Master Jia Yan. I even went to inquire about you and even took some recorded videos to watch. I never thought that I would actually see you in person one day. The conversation started. Both sides were officers and soldiers under the master's influence. They quickly got along with each other and could talk freely. At least it would no longer be awkward. So, you were just injured and went to the North Star for treatment. Yes, you all should know that I come from the outside world. I just retreated to the outside world to recover from my injuries. As early as when Jia Yan first became famous, his origins were already known to everyone in his power. Generally speaking, Biostar will not be too discriminatory or resistant to outsiders. Of course, they will also be divided into regions. Then you are ready to continue serving my master's power when you return this time. The other party considered it for a moment and asked cautiously. Jia Yan shook his head, sorry, I also have things to do here. Those medicines are really urgently needed. Otherwise, when I come back, I will report to the master's family first, instead of looking for you. That's regretful. Between questions and answers, both parties roughly inferred the other's purpose. Jia Yan's purpose is very simple, that is, I have enough strength now, and it is impossible for me to work hard again. As for the forces that control it, at least the top military leaders in this area still have a lot of goodwill and expectations for Jia Yan's appearance. The war here is getting more and more unsatisfactory, and maybe more will be lost if the fight continues. Instead of doing this, it would be better to let this officer who turned decay into magic take charge again. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. There will be no resistance this time. It's a pity that falling flowers are ruthless. Jia Yan doesn't do this anymore. In other words, he no longer values the things within the master's power, and he doesn't need to work hard to improve himself, so he might as well reject them all. Certainly. The relationship is still there, but business still needs to be done. Especially before he left, the Xiao family who had been taken care of by the master's power, as well as the high-level training supplies that he still cared about in the master's power, were still slightly attractive to him. But if the cost is too high, there is no need. When he went out this time, he didn't just want medicines from a place like the Great God's house. Instead, he would collect them as he walked and make a rough plan. He would start from North Superstar and continue to South Superstar, East Superstar, and West Superstar. Superstar. So there is no time to waste here. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2991. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. In the end, Jia Yan only stayed in the northern land for less than 10 days and immediately began the process of returning. It's just that there is no plane for them to ride this time, because the kind of plane that can fly in the North Star is by no means a simple thing. How can we get another one for them with important supplies for war preparation? Although he was sure to borrow it, Jia Yan didn't mention it and seemed to have strong expectations for taking the train. Master Jia Yan, are you an old acquaintance with them? Leda asked cautiously on the train. Well, you have also heard these days that I do have some incestuous feelings with this power that controls it. Then you want to? Facing Leda's inquiry, Jia Yan shook his head lazily, then picked up the map on the train, pointed to a certain direction and said, first we go here to pick up someone, and secondly I decide what to do. Pick someone up. Leda's eyelids twitched and he looked at the map. Jia Yan hadn't told him where he was going before, so he thought Jia Yan was really returning to Ludi Forest. After receiving the people, go to Ludi Forest. Their potions must have been prepared. Then it's time to really roam in this northern giant. Jia Yan spoke in an orderly manner, which made Leda burst out with excitement. He also thought that as soon as Jia Yan got the potion from the master's power, he would go out to the North Star and go to places like the South Star to ask for new medicine. I didn't expect to still hang out here. But he didn't ask about the purpose. The train was sobbing, not only Jia Yan, but also Leda, who had just arrived, gradually fell in love with this feeling. I met an old domain lord on the train, and I don't know how he is doing now. Jia Yan thought of the old domain lord he met on the train. Given the situation at the time, he was probably not going to die soon. As long as he survived until now, there should be no big problem. However, in the vast sea of people, even if he was alive, he would not be able to encounter him again. Maybe in the future when I am old and about to die, I will come to a place like Biostar to seek an ordinary death of old age. Jia Yan suddenly felt a little emotional, and then shook his head sarcastically. Thinking too much. A month later, the train stopped in a little-known small city. It is close to the Southern Territory and is very close to Ludi Forest, but it is not at the main transportation hub and the development is not satisfactory. A giant mosquito steps out of the train with his subordinates. The surroundings were bustling with people, because when they reached the rear area, the surrounding scenery became different from the tense rear areas, full of an atmosphere of peace. I've met this senior. There were people who had already been notified and had been waiting outside the train station for a long time. After getting on their special car, Jia Yan asked kindly, "Is Xiao Yuer okay?" Little fish? Leda keenly grasped the key words in this sentence. Who is Xiao Yuer? Could it be that he is an old acquaintance that Master Jia Yan is trying to collect here? The vehicle did not turn directly into the residential area, but entered the central office area of this small city. Before that, there is an adult who would like to meet you in person. The receptionist opened a door of the office building respectfully and said to the people inside, "I have brought Mr. Jia Yan." This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. A smile appeared on Jia Yan's face as he looked at the people in the office. The little devil's tail was raised high, and its fangs and large forehead seemed to be the same as before. Master Sela. I have met Princess Sela. Jia Yan seemed to have already understood that she was here and made a gesture of respect. Leda behind him quickly followed suit. He, Jia Yan, are you back? I knew you wouldn't give up on us. Princess Sela looked like an adult. Her body, which had not grown in so many years, jumped out from the table and crawled around Jia Yan like a monkey, laughing and laughing. Sir. Leda was a little weird. Don't worry, this is how Lady Sela expresses her excitement. Oh. Leda actually wants to say, you are a dignified domain lord, and I think he looks down on you a little bit. After rubbing hands with Jia Yan for a moment, the little devil jumped back behind the table, put on the air of a princess and said, Jia Yan, I appoint you as the Generalissimo to help us control the forces to fight back to the northern land and drive all the invaders back to their hometowns. Go. Sorry, I can't agree to your request. Jia Yan's straightforward refusal made the elegant Sela collapse suddenly. After she got the information that Jia Yan appeared on the northern front line, she immediately withdrew from the army and took a special plane to the north. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan was already gone, and she missed it. Later, judging from the ticket system and the residence of the little fish, Jia Yan should have come to the city, and he arrived first after a long journey. I didn't expect that after all the hard work, this would be the result. She was about to cry. Don't be like this. I also know that your master's power is in danger. If there is really something wrong, I will help you. Let's do this. When I get what I want, I will go to other realms and kill the enemies along the way. The army will take care of it, what do you think? Scylla stopped wiping her tears-free fingers and looked at him with wide eyes in confusion. Everyone behind him was also a little confused. Clean up? What do you mean? It's not interesting, just on paper. I've grown a little over the years. I guess these enemy forces won't be able to do anything to me. Hiss. Sela's eyes suddenly became suspicious. Are you Jia Yan? The former Jia Yan was very cautious and taught me many cautious tactics. Jia Yan couldn't help laughing and said, did I also teach you Yin Yang Dao? In addition, you should also teach the high-level Yin Yang Dao combat skills I compiled to the elite troops. Do you believe that I am Jia Yan? But you shouldn't say such things. The master, Sela, mainly has an impression of Jia Yan as a cautious, rather thief-like person. But I didn't know that Jia Yan had such a side. How could I not say such a thing, little Princess Sela? Sometimes you can't look at a person from just one aspect, otherwise you will suffer a loss in the future. When Jia Yan's laughter came out, behind Sela, a figure suddenly appeared quietly, standing between Jia Yan and Sela, with a sharp gaze. Domain Master Level. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Scylla's new bodyguard. Sir, is what you said true? I hope you are not talking nonsense. Whether there is any nonsense, we will know when the time comes. Now I have to solve the purpose of my coming first. Where is Xiao Yuer? I will go and greet her personally. Soon, everyone here started traveling with Jia Yan with strange attitudes. On the way, the little devil Sela looked back frequently and looked at Jia Yan with doubtful eyes. This was the first time she knew that this outsider with whom she had a good relationship had such a domineering side. It's just that I'm still too young, maybe I'll fall in love with him when I grow up. How long will it take to reach adulthood? Little Sela thought for a while. It would probably take a few hundred years. After all, their race is famous for its longevity and long childhood. Let's talk about things that happen hundreds of years later. Today is the day when Xiao Yuer goes to kindergarten. Little fish, jump up and down, go to school, ba ba ba. A plump pink fish floated in the air, blowing cute colorful bubbles while following his parents on their way to the kindergarten. The family of 3 was enjoying themselves. We really have to thank that powerful being, otherwise our family might still be homeless. Yes, but Xiao Yuer is preparing to practice with that powerful being. Why hasn't he come yet after so many years? Parents are extremely concerned about Xiao Yuer's cultivation. A family of 3 was floating and passing by. In front of them was Xiao Yuer's kindergarten. But at the intersection, a car was already parked. Haven't seen you for a long time. The calm male voice attracted the attention of the family of 3, causing Xiao Yuer to stop blowing the half-blown colorful bubbles and explode them. She raised her eyes and looked up. I saw that this was a creature with a rather streamlined appearance, and it was very large, with a body of about 5 meters. This creature could be classified as a giant in the North Star. You are. The parents beside him were alert at first, and then seemed to recognize something, their voices full of tension and excitement. It seems that you 2 still know me. Xiao Yuer is already suitable for cultivation, right? I have kept my promise and come to lead her to practice. I wonder if it is convenient for you to hand her over to me now. Fang, convenient, but... Xiao Yuer's mother was also a big fish with a fat head. She floated in front of Xiao Yuer, and big tears rolled out of the fish's eyes. Xiao Yuer, your master has come to pick you up. Just go with your master. Maybe there will be no chance to see you again in this life, but you have to practice hard so that we, the Sea Beast clan, can also become strong. The little fish's eyes widened, and he looked at his parents and then at the strong man standing proudly beside him. She didn't know why, but she seemed to remember the memories from back then, especially the memory that the other party said he wanted to accept her as his disciple, and he was full of affection for this stranger. Well, I will practice hard, and I will also come to visit you. Mom and Dad, I am going to practice with the master. Bang bang, a series of colorful bubbles created ripples of light in the air. Soon, there was another cute little colorful fish in the moving car. She looked here and there in the car, very curious about the baby's appearance. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Sir, if you take such a young child on the road, I'm afraid she won't be able to bear the dust on the road. Leda stopped talking several times, but finally couldn't hold back and spoke out words of advice. From the perspective of a starry sky powerhouse, creatures under 100 years old are no different from babies. Xiao is no more than 20 years old at most, so why are they wandering around with her? It doesn't matter. Don't you still believe that I can keep her safe? That's not true. Leda quickly and angrily did not dare to ask any more questions. He didn't know that from Jia Yan's perspective, teenagers were enough to try to practice. Otherwise, there would be so many children on Earth who started practicing at a few years old, and they would be envious to death. Xiao, sit down and tell me how many cultivation skills you have mastered now. The little fish will rush. The little pink fish swam in the air, and suddenly it dived into nowhere with a pop. Then, a grinning fish appeared on the road outside the car. When the driver braked quickly, she got in again with a pop. A certain area, the next second, appeared in the original seat. Really? Jia Yan was amazed by what he saw. This little guy's subspace talent is extremely talented, perhaps even higher than his own subspace talent. Of course, Jia Yan's subspace talent is not calculated in this way, because he is an evolved beast, and his talent grows step by step along with practice. Until now, the talent has been considerable. Xiao Yu had such a talent from the beginning. Don't use this trick indiscriminately, otherwise it will be dangerous. Xiao usually doesn't need it when he goes to school. The little pink fish swung its tail, not afraid of life at all. Maybe she is not afraid of life because of her closeness to Jia Yan. After all, Jia Yan left a deep impression on her heart. Jia Yan accepted his apprentice, and his current mission was to go to Ludi Forest and get back the life-prolonging potion that was said to be almost ready. Naturally, he would not entertain the idea of only taking 1 or 2 portions of this potion. After all, he wants to feed his family, so he will collect as much as possible. Although there are not many forces like the Great God's house, he can find many if he works hard to find them in Biostar. And the Northern Giant can only be regarded as fill-in. He believes that the most critical search point is the Southern Giant, which is the real top gene and drug research base in the Milky Way. The actions in North Star were just a warm-up at best. By the way, Jia Yan also understood medicine, saving South Star from being cheated. But these potions cannot be lost if you look for them at Zhiyuan. There is no guarantee of medicine. Maybe these seemingly ordinary things made by medical forces are the most suitable for those relatives. He has seen all the efforts of the Great God's family to collect medicines. Such large-scale trial and error and experimental methods would probably not be supported by any force on the Earth or even in the central star field of the Milky Way. In terms of resources, only within countless superstars can there be power to support such research. So he won't take it lightly. Fortunately, the potion you requested has been successfully produced. Surprisingly, Jia Yan thought he would have to go through another wrangling when he returned to Ludi Forest, but what he received was a high-tech confidentiality box neatly brought by the master's house. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Opening it, he found bottles of the medicine he wanted inside. The results are guaranteed. If you have any questions, you can come back to us at any time. Jia Yan quickly came to his senses. These guys probably knew about his agreement with Sila and wanted to let themselves go to attack the enemy on behalf of the Master's forces as soon as possible. Thinking of this, he smiled and quietly put the box into the subspace. With another move of the foot, a map flew out of subspace. Map? Everyone present was a little confused. Shouldn't they pay? Why take out the map? I won't pay the money. Jia Yan's first sentence made several researchers want to jump. But what he said next was audible on the spot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2992. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. But I didn't say I wouldn't pay the price. There is a map here. I am going to the country next to the northern land. You can help me draw a route. The premise is that it cannot be too complicated. And where this route passes, I will help you and others eliminate all the hostile forces along the way, including the senior domain lord. Buzz. Everyone who was still complaining about it suddenly changed their expressions. Even the few medical professionals who were still irritated could not help but remain silent. Because they all understood what Jia Yan meant. That is to say, let them draw a route on that map. No matter how they draw it, Jia Yan will eliminate all the enemy troops along the way. Even senior domain owners are included. This, basically gives the master a huge opportunity to gain power. Your Excellency Jia Yan, are you sure that this so-called route includes senior domain masters along the way? Do you think you can solve it yourself? Jia Yan looked calmly at the leader of the great god's house who asked the question. Leda, who was next to him, did not wait for Jia Yan to speak. He stood up very wisely and snorted coldly, "Why do you ask so many questions? Since my master has said it, he will naturally fulfill his promise. Do you want to paint? When you don't paint, no more waiting. Paint. Paint. But please wait a moment, I'll hang up the communication phone." The domain lord level leader nodded quickly and bowed, took out the communicator with a strange look on his face, and walked out of the room, seemingly going outside to hang up the phone. Not long after, just waiting for a cup of tea, he returned for the second time. "Bring the pen, I'll draw." His eyes were red, as if he had argued with someone somewhere. After taking the pen, he stared at the map, and then gently put down the pen. With the great control of a domain lord, he meticulously carved the lines. Looking at it, he was afraid that his hand would shake even a little, but every stroke was lifelike. Not even a millimeter of vibration exists. He first drew a simple straight line in the southern area, because there were no enemy troops here. Then he suddenly changed the route to the east, looked up at the silent Jia Yan, and found that the giant mosquito was looking at him. There was no sign of perseverance, so he calmed down and pulled the thread to the lower west corner again. This time Jia Yan smiled, with a hint of helplessness on his expression, but still didn't say any words. Afterwards, even Leda's entourage couldn't help it and said softly, "It's almost done." The other party looked up at Jia Yan again and found that Jia Yan had no intention of stopping his subordinates. He also understood that he had gone too far and changed the excessive up and down lines, leading straight to the northern region. Now, even if he knew better than to overdo it, he still had to redraw the lines to be extremely detailed and clear. Leda hesitated and wanted to say something, but found that Jia Yan gave him a secret look. He understood and immediately shut up. "It seems that your excellency is indeed very concerned about this so-called master's power. Otherwise, whoever travels through a country would have to go through so much trouble." It was not a line, it was like a heartbeat curve. He suspected that it would take a long time for both his master and servant to complete this curve. All right. Finally, after the leader of the domain lord extended the line beyond the master's power map and marked it at the location of a city of another power, the map also came to an end. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E /U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Are you sure you haven't missed anything? Jia Yan asked with a smile. No, actually, I don't really believe what I said to you, but I believe you. I hope you can do at least half of this map. No, 1/3 will be enough, especially in the northern region. When the other party handed the map back to Jia Yan, his eyes were full of expectation and hope. This is the emotion and color that only a patriot can show. Unexpectedly, within the controlling forces, the independence forces that many middle and high-level officials were scolding would actually be such a patriotic person, a real spy. Don't worry, I won't disappoint you. Jia Yan laughed dumbly. The dignified domain lord's back steps, the words he spoke out were the water he poured out. If he could only complete half of this, his name, Jia Yan, would have to be written backwards. In this case, without further ado, prepare a device for me to protect her from the impact of high-speed flight. I believe you have it ready-made. Bring it and we will set off immediately. Yes, bring it immediately. Soon, Jia Yan placed the smiling and ignorant little fish in the device. This device was wonderful. It could just fit on Jia Yan's abdomen and back. The front was streamlined, reducing wind resistance and slowing down the damage caused by the impact. It should be very high-tech stuff. After carrying his apprentice Xiao on his back, he took Leda out of the great god's house. Take care, everyone. The two sides said goodbye to each other, and Jia Yan soared into the sky. Leda followed closely behind. Leda, your flying speed is not as fast as mine. You can fly north by yourself with the certificate they just gave you. If you arrive earlier than me, wait for me on the northern front. Yes. Leda didn't say much, gritted his teeth and flew towards the north of the master's influence. Others may not believe in Jia Yan's ability, but as someone who followed Jia Yan from the outside world and personally participated in many battles with Jia Yan, can he still not believe in Jia Yan's combat prowess? The lower level of the Domain Lord. Even within the entire North Star, they are probably rare superpowers. Boom. Wow. The little fish was inside the device, like a small house, holding a bunch of snacks and looking at the outside world. The fish was blowing bubbles and screaming from time to time. She had never flown so fast before, it was so scary. But also very comfortable. Haha, it's fun, isn't it? Master, I will show you something more fun. Jia Yan lowered his head and looked at this new apprentice, intending to show her something. Puff. The next moment, he entered the subspace inside the North Superstar. Suddenly, the entire speed became faster, and the surrounding scenery also changed from distortion to linear shape, which made the little fish's eyes dazzled. Wow, wow. She kept screaming until the air reappeared in her nasal cavity. Jia Yan, considering her endurance, reappeared outside the subspace. It's much stronger than the subspace abilities that Xiao Yu performed before. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Do you want to learn? Want to learn? In a few days, Master will teach you. Okay. Little Yu wants to learn. Ba 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 dash. She happily blew out colorful bubbles to express her excitement. There are sparks and lightning all the way here, flying and entering the subspace, which can be described as extremely fast. Leda on the other end is flying by himself, and the speed is much slower, but he also belongs to the middle-level existence of the galaxy, placed in the master among the forces. The top brass of a unit are not too slow to say they are slow. There are 5 provinces in the eastern region of the master's power. Similar to the northern region, it is a natural border blocked by natural chasms. However, the enemy has occupied 3 provinces at this time. Compared with the entire occupied north, it is also not much better. Inside the fighting area between the two sides, the two armies are still facing each other. The flames of war are filled with smoke. There were shouts of killing, and the wailing before death was endless. Above the sky, there is a seemingly inconspicuous black object, taking advantage of the night. Within the North Star, the war does not matter whether it is at night or not. After all, most creatures do not have that serious impact on the night. Xiao Yuer, are you afraid? This figure was thousands of meters high in the sky, looking at the scenery below. A familiar smell reached his olfactory organs, and he felt a little relaxed physically and mentally. He had not experienced this feeling for a long time. Don't be afraid, the little fish will fight. Bang bang bang. Inside the abdominal device, the little fish's eyes were bright, and it did not have too many adverse effects due to the bloody war. Jia Yan breathed a sigh of relief. He was worried that this little fish would be uncomfortable with blood. After all, there were still many such girls. Since there's nothing to do, let's do it. Jia Yan was like a king dominating the world, launching his ultimate move directly from high in the sky. To lie. A large mound of soil flew up from the ground, as if it was controlled by someone with superpowers. You must know that this is within a superstar, and there are very few people with such strong brainwave power. However, Jia Yan did not use the mound to directly commit murder. Instead, he caused the mound to be automatically divided into two parts. Soon the brainwave power was absorbed into the mound, and the mound soon turned a light blue color. Yes, this is a simplified version of Onmyado's explosives. Although it is a simplified version of emergency manufacturing, Jia Yan is now much stronger than when he was in Biostar, and his power in an instant is simply earth-shattering. Buzz. What's that in the sky? What's going on? Why is this dirt in the air? It seems that it is still merging automatically and turning into spherical objects. What exactly is it? Before the two sides fighting below noticed what was happening above, they saw that the two mounds of soil had combined with each other and kneaded into small beads like balls. The next moment, the spherical objects were like bullets, blasting down one target after another on the ground. How many spheres are there? Each bullet is the size of 1,000,000 bullets, big and small. Whoosh! What the hell? Ah! Damn it, it's attacking our coalition forces. Be careful, this should be the method of the Master's power. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. What kind of method? No way, with such power, more than 150,000 people were killed or injured in an instant. Retreat temporarily. Enter, strong man. Find out what's causing this. If it's a machine, destroy it. Many enemy troops only felt that deadly gunfire was coming from the sky, and this bullet-like object was more lethal than ordinary gunfire. Even the Venerable class and even the Semi-Star class could be killed if they were not careful. All will suffer casualties due to their attacks. You must know that even within the North Superstar, the Venerable or Semi-Star level is the standard configuration for cannon fodder. Only when you reach the star level can you compete for positions above Captain. The attack with 1,000,000 terrifying lethal substances just now killed half of the 300,000 enemy troops with just one blow. Among them, the probability of accidental injury is extremely low, which shows how precise the bullets fired can be controlled. Did 1,000,000 kill only 100,000? But this is my first time to attack like this. Compared with the results, it's pretty good. Jia Yan is actually not too satisfied with these effects, but it is understandable if it is used for the first time. If it is used more in the future, there will definitely be greater improvements. Wow! So awesome, Master! Xiao should also learn from it. Xiao was stunned. There were so many bad uncles down there, and each of them was better than Xiao in fighting, and all of them were beaten to death by the Master at once. Xiao's eyes were bright and bright. She also wanted to become such a powerful person in the future. Sneak attack on the bad guy and you'll die. At this moment, a strong wind approached, and the little fish couldn't breathe easily, and several bubbles burst. But just when she was a little scared, the master who was carrying her on his back smiled lightly. 2 territory lords. With such abilities, they still want my life. Jia Yan's 2 feet shot out suddenly, and the feet suddenly stretched, and the space between the front feet suddenly seemed to have doubled in length, piercing the 2 territory lord level beings who were approaching him. You. Senior Domain Lord. The eyes of the 2 territory lords quickly lost their life color and fell to the ground unwillingly. With the deaths and injuries of these 2 domain lords, needles could be heard on the entire battlefield, and the battle between hundreds of thousands of troops seemed to have pressed the stop button. You must know that everyone is strong, no matter how weak the soldiers are, they are at least at the level of venerables. Of course they can see who the 2 fallen beings are. It was the 2 territory lords who had been extremely active on the battlefield before. They even joined forces to kill a territory lord on the side of the master's power. It was said that they were in the limelight for a while. But just like that, 2 territory lord level beings were killed by the mysterious visitor in an instant. Kill 2 in one hit. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Tisk, tisk. It's a bit weak. The master's troops here are weak, and the attacking enemies are also weak. Why is it not as good as the one in the north? Jia Yan smiled to himself. Everyone below did not dare to breathe, for fear of arousing the hostility of this unknown strong man. Oh? Is this side weak? Your Excellency, why don't you take a look and see if I am weak? Among the voices, a smiling voice sounded from deep inside the enemy army. Accompanying this laughter, a figure that looked like a god descending to earth slowly rose up amid the cheers of the enemy soldiers. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Senior Domain Lord. Jia Yan didn't show any surprise. He looked at the figure from a distance and sneered. Week 2. This day was a very tense day in the Great God's house. At least that's the case for the leader of the Great God's house. He made a big bet, and the boss roared at him for a while. The special thing about the Great God's house is that it is independent of the master's power. In order to obtain medicines and treatments from the Great God's house, the surrounding forces have relationships and connections with this power. The master's power can gain access to it every year from the Great God's house. The family has received a huge amount of funds and resources, which is an increasingly important top priority among the forces that are under siege, and resources are constantly being consumed. But recently, the leader of the Great God's house has made frequent mistakes. First, he personally led a strong man from outside the world to the northern front line. He even showed up in the army to lead the way for the strong man and even charged into battle with the enemy. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2993. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Forget about the above. It can be argued that it was the strong man who intimidated the Great God's family into doing it. But you led this person back to the house of the Great God, and then reported to the superiors. What did you say? Please give the map route to the peaks, and then General Jia Yan will push the enemy along the route. What kind of joke are you kidding? The longer you live, the faster you go back. Would the leader of a dignified family believe in such a trick to deceive a child? That Jia Yan. Even if his true identity is not revealed. But after knowing his true identity, who would believe that he can do this? After all, the original Jia Yan who made great achievements in the north was only at the level of a territory lord, and was not even a senior territory lord. Even if there is later evidence that this Jia Yan probably reached the realm of a senior territory lord when he disappeared. But how many years have passed, 5 years or 10 years? The battle in the north hasn't been completely over yet. He sneaked back and said that he could flatten the entire master's power front. Jia Yan's brain was shaken, and the leader of the great god's house, who might have been deceived by his childish remarks, was even more mentally retarded. Many top leaders decided that when this farce is over, they will arrange for the leader of the great god's house to be replaced. But no matter how much Shangfeng didn't believe it, he still gave some rough battlefields where the master's power was most difficult, and these battlefields were remembered one by the leader of the great god's house. Eventually it evolved into the road map in Jia Yan's hand. In the end, can he do it? The leader of the House of Gods, who had been sitting in the office all day, felt restless and stood up and paced from time to time. Although he also knew that Jia Yan's first stop was in the east, he couldn't arrive in one day. Even if he was really powerful and fast, it would take at least 5 or 6 days to arrive. This is his estimate that Jia Yan is the pinnacle of senior territory lords, or, the lower level of territory lords. But he never expected that after the first day had just passed, he would wait until the morning of the next day. Newsletter is coming. Although he couldn't believe that this was a battle status notification, when he saw that the caller was from Shangfeng's number, his heart trembled violently, and he answered the phone with some excitement. 2 minutes later, the territory lord's expression gradually turned into disbelief, then excitement, and finally excitement. Soon a rumor began to spread like weeds in the eastern part of the controller family's power, which was in despair due to the war. About 10 years ago, the northern war god Jia Yan, who is still remembered and recited by countless people today, has returned again. This time was different from last time. He was like sun Dashan descending from the sky on colorful clouds. He no longer used military means, but used his unparalleled combat power to draw his sword to help when there was injustice. With one blow, he flattened the entire eastern front. Yes, Jia Yan appeared again on the corrupt battlefield in the east, which was not much different from the north. And as soon as he appeared, he directly used his supreme personal combat power to single-handedly overthrow the 3 major armies of the east. Battlefield. And what's even more amazing is that he conquered 3 major battlefields in one night, killing and injuring nearly 1 million enemy troops, and even killed 3 senior domain lords, plus 17 powerful domain lords. Those are the 3 senior domain masters. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. How many senior domain masters are there among the current masters? Such a striking and outstanding record directly detonated the entire master's circle of influence. The next day, before the internet exploded, the media circle exploded first. The ground was filled with publicity and interpretation of this battle. Some media even cried out, "Is this a dream?" After experiencing blood and fire, the former god of war comes to rescue us again. Yes, the main theme in the media is to promote this magical and powerful outsider. After all, he is not only a well-known legendary general who has been wronged by the media before, but now in just 10 years, he has sprinted to the point where he can easily kill senior domain lords. The media even spared no words of praise and said that this general should have gone through all kinds of hardships to find powerful people outside the country to improve his strength in order to save hundreds of millions of people. After experiencing unbelievable pain for ordinary people, he finally returned home in glory. Now it's time to save the trillions of people under the power of the master. For a time, the internet was filled with excitement and gratitude. Even if there is a trace of discordant voice, I am afraid it will be instantly drowned in a large amount of rebuttal and media anger. It is even possible that even the article or the author himself will quietly disappear. After all, for such a super powerful person, both the officials and the public know that if he lets go, even if there is a great victory on the Eastern Front, the power of the master will still be destroyed. The appearance of this strong man was like a life-saving straw. Wow, wow, Xiao thinks the master is so awesome, I will be as awesome in the future. Really? Then you have to work hard. Jia Yan was flying in the sky and killed so many strong men. To him, it was like an appetizer, and he didn't feel tired at all. To his great relief, the little apprentice he accepted, Xiao, did not cry because of the blood or the fear of war after watching the whole process. This was a good sign for him. It shows that the little guy is not afraid of war, at least not afraid of fighting, and the future is promising. Get some sleep, my master will wrap your house with strength without any bumps. Okay, good night, master, ba ba dash. The little fish screamed excitedly, spitting out a string of colorful bubbles to express its joy, then yawned greatly, pointed its butt outward, and purred loudly within 2 seconds. Sure enough, I am still a little tired, after all, I am such a young child. Jia Yan used the power of brain waves to create a quite comfortable environment for her, silent and bumpless. The next moment, he was flying in the air and suddenly accelerated again, heading towards the south. For Jia Yan, this is not a tiring thing. And the entire front line below, as well as the air defense measures, seems to have already understood the deeds of this strong man after getting the battle situation on the Eastern Front. When I went to the east yesterday, there were high-altitude shots from time to time, and the strong man's breath disappeared. Although those interferences did not have much impact on Jia Yan, they were still uncomfortable. Now that the discomfort has disappeared, his speed can increase a little. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Jia Yan took another step thousands of miles into the subspace, flew out to the normal space to rest, and then entered the subspace again. In less than a day, he traveled more than 1 billion kilometers to reach the place where the master's power was controlled. South. You must know that Jia Yan took the master's power train from southeast to north for more than half a year. Now he can fly across the same distance by himself in only 1 day. It can be seen that the speed is so fast. How amazing! Coming. Salute. On the ground below, where the two armies faced each other, the troops who controlled the forces had probably received the information, and about half of them gathered behind the position, and they all saluted the military salute below. How does it feel to have at least 100,000 people saluting you? A strong man like Jia Yan was suddenly filled with bursts of pride from the countless gazes of shock, joy, tears, discomfort, doubt, surprise, tragedy. You guys, wait and see me kill the enemy. Yes. In response to Hong Tian's reply, Jia Yan carried Xiao Yuer, who had already woken up, and there was a look of anticipation in the big fish's eyes, and crashed directly into the enemy camp of another force to the south behind. They must have received urgent information, and the enemy forces in the south were already well prepared. For the troops, they may not know how terrifying the approaching enemy is, but I am afraid that even the head of the troops who has obtained the intelligence will find it difficult to believe that the master's force, which has been beaten to pieces, can still invite a group of people. A superpower. Among millions of troops, killing a senior domain lord is like searching for something. No one believes this nonsense, it is just an excuse for the defeat of the coalition forces in the east. However, after this approaching figure rushed into their troops alone, a large amount of soil rose up and turned into onmyeto positive and negative explosives, killing a large number of ordinary troops. They believed it. But it's useless to believe it. This is a confrontation in front of the battle. After a large number of ordinary troops died, the army of the master's power has already taken the opportunity to charge in with the roar of the mountain and the tsunami. The enemy's territory lord-level warriors had no choice but to face the challenge head-on, and they had a glimmer of hope that they could use their territory lord-level power to kill the flying enemy who could attack in large groups. Unfortunately, all is just wishful thinking. Jia Yan followed the trend and killed 2 ordinary domain lords in succession. They finally realized that the intelligence coming from the east was correct. But it was too late. The entire front finally collapsed and was defeated like a mountain. After Jia Yan once again gathered a large amount of positive and negative explosives and shot countless enemy troops, they could no longer organize an effective resistance. Want to escape? Jia Yan's eyes flickered, and he chased out again, catching a resource-deep domain lord who was trying to run into the deep mountains and old forests behind him. The electric light and flint flashed behind him, stringing him on the end of his foot with 1 foot, directly kill. The senior domain lord also kills me like melons and vegetables. If you can't fight, run away. With such a powerful person, why didn't the master's power come out earlier? As long as he is here, the coalition forces will be defeated. The entire eastern enemy army was defeated like a mountain, and was fiercely pursued from end to end by the master's army. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Sorry, I have to go to another battlefield. You can finish it on your own. Grateful. A domain lord was about to go up to the sky to talk to Jia Yan when he saw the strong man who had just accomplished such a great feat. He said goodbye to him with a faint smile, then turned around and left at lightning speed. This day, the whole world was shocked. The Jia Yan god of war, who just leveled the entire eastern front yesterday, actually traveled more than 1 billion kilometers to reach the south of the master's power today, and achieved the same great achievements as the eastern battlefield. Kill millions of enemies in one day. Drive away nearly 10 million enemy troops. The enemy was frightened and scurrying about, and coupled with the number of people pursued by the master's forces, this battle would probably cause more than 5 million enemy casualties. If the enemy was completely defeated, it would be difficult to recover. No need to give them away. Give me enough resource stones to restore my energy. Then I'll go. In mid-air, Jia Yan said goodbye to the many masters and powerful men who came to see him. Xiao Yuer also waved her arms like fins sensibly, shouting goodbye with a smile. Let's go to the next place. Let's go. Ba ba dash. With a series of colorful bubbles, Jia Yan once again embarked on a new journey. To be honest, it would be a lie to say that he is not tired. Killing enemies is actually not bad, but the power consumed by flying in the northern giant star is quite amazing. If he had not reached the lower level of the current territory lord, he might really be unable to bear it. But for him today, this fatigue is just to refresh him. Asking for those resource stones is not so much for recovery, but as a sentiment, so that the other party can feel at ease. Otherwise, what will they think? Don't waste your time to make your own efforts. Of course, the pay ratio between the two sides is an unprecedentedly huge gap. This terrifying and powerful man is truly unexpected. We, the masters, have been struggling to hold on for so long. We did not wait for rescue or vortex from other aspects, but finally waited for this strong man to take action. It is worthy of our support. It's so difficult. I feel like crying. At this moment, there were a lot of carnival sounds among the forces of those who had been under a lot of attacks and were gradually entering the trend of losing their country. The mysterious and powerful General Jia Yan reappeared, not only defeated the enemy in the east, but also rescued the enemy of the coalition forces in the south. The victory in these two aspects alone is enough for the master's forces to mobilize a large number of troops to support the northern front and several other major corrupt fronts. This is enough to bring the master's forces, who were almost sentenced to death, back to life. However, this does not seem to be the final contribution of General Jia Yan. His contributions are still flowing, and he is still giving surprises and even ecstasy to more people who control the power. Just 10 days later, Jia Yan, who fought in more than a dozen battlefields of various sizes and slept in the open, rushed directly to the northern front where he had been before. It was extremely emotional for Jia Yan to revisit his old place, but these emotions turned into some kind of strong murderous intention after seeing that the position he had held for a long time had long been turned into the territory of the enemy. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. These guys turned their military memories into bubbles, damn it. Boom. Rumble, rumble, rumble. With endless rage, explosives rained down from the sky, like the heavy rain that killed people. After experiencing large and small group battles, Jia Yan has already mastered how to conduct group battles. The time and techniques for condensing yin and yang dao explosives have been greatly improved. For example, if you prepare materials before entering the battlefield, or if you enter the enemy camp from the side, it is easier to cause effective damage. For example, your own brainwave power can kill strong enemies with 2 strikes instead of 1 strike. Not shameful. Yes, through more than a dozen group battles during this large-scale transfer, Jia Yan realized many of his problems.